But over the course of months, and literally our meetings were like 9 hours. They were these marathon meetings. They were exhausting.
What would he talk about?
His motivations had changed. He was pro-Al-Qaeda. He had things happen in his life where his motivations changed. He saw the light. After September 11th, he was like, oh my God, what are we doing? He had family influence that was like, what are you doing? This is not okay.
This is a guy who, I'm just using an example you just gave, who, wanted stuff like Sharia law, and he's talking to an American woman case officer, probably not wearing a hijab.
Yes. No, wasn't. There was one point because it was like eating me up. Why? Like, he talked to my friend. My friend was a dude. And I straight up asked him, why are you talking to me? I am a white Western woman. I am the antithesis of everything that you believe in. So I asked him, and he kind of just sat back, and he kind of got this little smirk and went, why not?
What's up, guys? If you haven't already, please smash that subscribe button and hit that like button on the video. And if you don't have time to watch this episode right now, I'd really appreciate it if you saved it to your watch later playlist on YouTube. Finally, if you'd like to follow me on Instagram or X, those links are in my description below. We finally got one of the famous Bin Laden hunters in the studio.
One of the many.
one of the many, but that was an interesting mission.
It was an interesting mission. Yeah.
We're gonna talk about it.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Don't worry. We're gonna get into it. But I'm really excited to talk with you, Shawnee, because you were a spy in an agency that almost no one out there thinks about, but is like an enormous. I mean, it's essentially like a sister of the CIA. Is that fair to say?
We do training together. So everyone gets training. Well, when you're a case officer and you go through the training, you go down to the farm, which is a CIA facility, but it's DIA and CIA instructors.
And DIA stands for Defense Intelligence Agency?
Defense Intelligence Agency. I lovingly call it the Discount Intelligence Agency.
Well, you made a hell of a career out of it, so we'll get into it.
I loved it, yeah.
But what did you always want to be a spy when you were growing up?
I did.
You did?
I did. I was a total nerd, yes. When I was really young, I was influenced by the news and what was happening in the world. And I don't remember what age I was when I found out what espionage was. But whatever happened, like, I joke, like angels, like the heavens opened up and angels started singing. Like, that's literally what happened. And I was like, okay, that is what I was born to do.
I mean, was it the kind of thing where like your childhood made you feel like there were skills you had to develop that you felt cool doing?
No. Like I said, I was a total nerd. I had no friends. I had imaginary friends. I probably shouldn't admit that, but yeah. That movie, If, I really like that. I related to that a lot. It's about imaginary friends. I had no skills. I was super, super shy. I was taught by my parents, like, you do as you're told, you respect your elders, you do not argue. That's how I was raised. I'm a rule follower, which is really weird for someone who used to work in espionage. I do not like breaking rules.
To this day?
To this day.
I don't believe you.
No, swear.
Really?
Yeah, if you're like, don't touch that cup, I will not touch that cup.
You broke rules for a living.
I did, but it's okay in other countries maybe.
Okay. All right, so just within our borders.
Right.
Well, that is what it says in the Constitution or in the what they wrote up about these agencies. Thy will not spy on their own citizens,
right.
which,
Yes.
I don't know about that one.
Depends.
Where did you grow up, though?
So I grew up in the Santa Cruz Mountains in California. Yes.
Oh, let's see. How many people do we get in here from Santa Cruz, and you're from Santa Cruz?
Well, we do have a lot. Luis didn't grow up there, but he did some cartel
So
there.
There's probably very good business there. I'm not going to lie. So he's a good entrepreneur. Yes.
Yeah. What were you saying? There was something about you found out your dad was doing shit too, like later?
Yeah. Several years ago, but like in recent history, I found out that my father was one of the major kingpins when it came, at least to marijuana. Lord knows what else he dabbled in, but I think him and all of his brothers were pretty legit.
And you didn't know this at all growing up?
I had no clue. And as I got older, like, family members started making jokes or comments, and I was like, what are you talking about? I'm so innocent. And then I asked family, like, straight up. I asked my mom, who had one version. I asked my dad, who definitely had a different version. But yeah, I I'm only half joking when I say I'm the black sheep of my family.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, but he's doing something that had to be under the radar. I see it's in the blood a little bit.
Yes, but he was breaking the rules. I did not want to break the rules. See the difference?
All right. Yeah, I don't really see the difference there, but we'll get there. So you found that out when you were way older, and somehow when you were like, do you remember him like sneaking in and out when you were a kid and wondering like what the fuck is he doing?
No, but he had some weird friends, and yeah, and he used to travel to Brazil a lot. I think he was kind of, I'll use the word entrepreneur.
Right.
I think he dabbled in a lot of different businesses. So I remember him coming home with these huge Ziploc bags full of loose emeralds. And as a little girl, I was like, ooh, sparkly, you know, still, it was my favorite stone, if anyone wants to know. But I didn't get any. He didn't leave me any. But he always had some business up his sleeve. He was importing art from Czechoslovakia before it became the Czech Republic.
That's how you hide money, Alessi. That's how it's done.
Really? No.
Yeah. So that's an interesting childhood.
It was very
interesting childhood to find out about later.
Yes.
Too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much of a surprise.
But you wanted to be a spy. You were like, as you said, it hit you, and you're like,
yes.
I'm gonna do it. So did you even know like what DIA is? Because everyone knows CIA, but
I had no clue. So what happened was I tried to get hired by the CIA multiple times. The first time, I think I was 18 or 19 years old.
18.
Mm-hmm. I knew the world. I had like one thing about my dad is he traveled a lot, right? So probably for business. Now that I think about it, but we traveled all over the world, and I was just a very worldly young person, I guess. I studied Spanish. I thought that made me super special. It did not at all. So I pivoted and studied Arabic instead. Yeah, but I applied when I was in college, and I made it to the first interview, and I'll never forget, the guy interviewed me, and I was in deep. Like, I knew every question he was asking. I knew the world leader, and I knew what was going on in the world, and I was like really proud of myself. And he goes, "How old are you again?" And I got kind of quiet, and I was like, 18, sir, 19, whatever it was. And he just kind of looked like this look on his face was like, you got it. Just wasted my time.
You gotta be like, I'm however old you want me to be.
I know. How old do I look? Yeah, so he was like, just call us in a few years. All
okay,
right?
so he said you can do a callback.
Yeah,
at least.
which
It
I
wasn't
did.
Like cutting you.
Yeah, no, which I did, and then I did again. And then when I was outside, I want to say, gosh, maybe 2003, 2004-ish. Ballparking. My mind is a blur when we talk about years. I interviewed. I went through the whole thing. They brought me out to D.C. I sat through all the tests, the psychological tests, and it was like a week of testing. And I was sitting in a waiting room, and there was another redhead. I know her full name. I'll only say Sarah, if she's out there. I hope she's succeeding. But she was in the waiting room, and we were talking and like lamenting and like what happens if you don't get hired, and I always need a plan. I need B, C, D, E, like mini plans. And I was like, I don't know, if they don't hire me, maybe I'll go NSA, maybe I'll try FBI, like get in the law enforcement way. You know, I was trying to pivot. And she goes, well, if I don't get picked up, I'm going to go DIA, because DIA is the same thing. It's the same job. It's trained at the same facility with CIA. And I was like, maybe I need to look into that.
Like so nonchalant.
I know. Okay. So I researched it, and different mission, right? We're supporting the warfighter at DIA. It's the Department of Defense organization.
Yeah. Can you expand upon that a little bit? Because I think we blend it together and assume the CIA is doing that. So what is that difference?
They are to a degree. So our primary mission is to support the warfighter. So think about just the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the stuff that we've been dealing with all these years. When we would deploy out there, and I did two deployments to Iraq, 2 to Afghanistan, best time of my life, after kids. I was very focused on tactical initially. We shifted a bit and got into strategic when politics and elections were coming up and things like that. But we were heavily focused on where are the IEDs, where are our soldiers going to get blown up. We were trying to save lives. So our primary mission was protecting those warfighters as they were out there in the war zones.
But obviously, you end up doing more than that.
Yes.
Because when you go to get that information, you're getting all kinds of other information.
Yes.
So maybe
let's table that as far as like what the process is there, because we got to get through how you were getting there. But you mentioned before you were sitting in the waiting room with the other girl, Sarah, that you had gone through all the different testing at CIA,
Yes.
including the psychological testing.
Yes.
And I'm just, you're like, what, 20 at this point?
I was pretty young.
Yeah, like 20, 21. Like,
Yeah.
what is that? What are you allowed to talk about? Like, what does that consist of?
They want to make sure that you have a good head on your shoulders. You're suitable, right? They don't want anyone that's going to wear a tinfoil hat 24/7 and, their hair's going to be on fire if anyone looks at them wrong. You can't be paranoid. You have to, there's a fine line between paranoia and a healthy sense of security, awareness, if you will. They want worldly people. They want people who are level-headed and even-keeled, especially in high-pressure situations. I mean, if you think about it, the people that I was meeting, their lives were on the line. Their families' lives were on the line. So you can't have some like douche, going and running assets. It's just not. It's not going to work.
Yeah, it's such a delicate dance. I mean, forget like even starting to get to know people or introducing yourself to people and how difficult that is to not like raise the alarm bells.
Right.
Especially, I'm thinking in the Middle East. You're a fair-skinned American girl, right? Like that's definitely a little different than what they're used to.
It's funny you say that. Actually, I just met with somebody who I haven't seen in many, many years, probably more than 20 years. And her father was one of my instructors. And I didn't know it when I met her. And she casually dropped like, oh, my father was so-and-so. And I went, oh my God, first of all, I loved him. But you need to tell him something for me. And she's like, what? And I said, he pulled me aside, as well as multiple other old white men. They pulled me aside one by one and were like, look, you're going to have trouble. Those people in the Middle East, they're not going to want to talk to you. Those men, they're not going to want to talk to you. It's going to be hard, blah, blah, blah. You're uphill battle. Like, they really set me up for failure because their perception was no one would talk to me. And then you drop me in the Middle East, and it was like pushing people away because I could talk to women. I could go sit in a kitchen on the floor and I have photos, pick cherry stems off of cherries and help the women and the wives and the aunts and the grandmothers and everyone make dinner. Carry it into the room where all the men were sitting, playing games on the floor, drinking whiskey. And then I would go join.
Oh, you join them?
I would join the men. So I straddled both worlds, and it was incredibly successful. And so I told her to tell her father he was wrong.
Mad Dog wasn't one of those guys.
No.
Right, good.
No, Mad Dog has always been an amazing supporter.
Yeah, Jim Lawler was episode 129 in here.
Yeah.
We love Jim, even if he's still in the CIA.
No.
He says he's not.
He is. He's amazing. My kids call him Mr. Lawler.
Mr. Lawler. Oh, boy.
Did he tell you about the gold bars?
I don't think so.
Okay, I shouldn't tell his own story.
Well,
But
tell it.
he has a photo. Ask him next time you talk to him. He has a photo, and he's sitting on top of a pile of gold bars holding a cigar.
I have not heard about this.
But
That's
I told my
badass.
kids about it. He has a whole story. I'll let him tell you. But I told my kids, he has this photo. I've seen it. And we went and spent Easter with them, him and his wife, Ellen, and they hid Easter eggs around the house. It was so sweet. And my kids are finding things, and they found the photo. And they were like, it's real. So he's a legend.
I'm just picturing like the Joker in front of that money pile and be like, everything burns. Just like Jim lighting the gold bar.
He looks super cool too. He's just like, yeah.
How did you know him though? Was he like one of the original instructors you had?
So he was, he had started this special series of courses that he called the scientist recruitment courses. So this is I think super interesting. And when I talk to private sector now, I tell them about this. So the US government, as well as other countries, we focus and we train on how to target certain types of individuals, right? Scientists, nuclear physicists, mathematicians. I have nothing in common with a mathematician. I hate math more than anything on the planet, right? But I am trained now in how to have a conversation with these like 20-pound brain people.
Oh, yeah.
Through him and his courses. So he had 4 courses. I took all of them. And the first time I met him, actually, he would tell you the story too, because he remembers. He reminded me. I had dislocated my wrist, and I was in a cast, and it was upside down. And like the first comment he made was about the cast and my name. And everyone always comments on my name because it's weird.
Shawnee, how are you?
Yeah. And I was like, my parents were hippies. Thanks. And he remembers that. And we just became really fast friends. He became like a mentor. And then after I got out and he retired, we've just stayed super, super close.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That dude's a sharp guy.
I love that man.
I mean, he really.
Yes.
When he was talking to me, he was like hypnotizing me.
But you can feel it.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
What did I say? I'm like, I feel like your eye me into my soul. So he just kept going.
So him and I have a thing, and I'm probably going to get hammered for this, but we talk about the metaphysics a lot, and we're starting to talk about it more in public. But he and I, years and years ago, have started talking about like how. Do you feel like when you're in a source meeting, like sometimes you can make them say things you want them to say? And I'm like, yeah. And like, so we're talking about this over the years, and it sounds stupid, but it's kind of like Jedi mind.
Oh yeah.
You know, like he and I and other people can actually manipulate conversations to go exactly where we want to go and have people say what we want them to say. So
100%.
we call them metaphysics.
No, I think 100. I know for a fact he can do that.
Yes.
Because I could feel him. Like I do this.
You
for
feel
a
the
living,
energy.
and I can feel him doing it to me. I'm like,
Yeah.
you son of a.
No,
You know,
yeah.
but like even when I have Bustamante in here, like I go way back with him, and I've probably edited him more than anyone on planet. I definitely have edited him more than anyone on planet Earth, so I know every mannerism or whatever. But I can see like, oh my god, that son of a bitch. Like this is why he was good at his job because he can change the conversation. And in my case, I even know he's doing it sometimes,
but you still go with it,
and it still happens. I'm like, whatever.
Yep.
It's an amazing skill.
Yeah.
But you were saying he would teach you to talk to all these different types of people. So like you use the mathematician example because that's not something that's like in your wheelhouse.
Not fun.
So how would you go talk to Kurt Jamungle?
Do we know a mathematician?
Yeah. Kurt Jamungle is just in here. He's a mathematical physicist.
That sounds horrifying.
Genius.
I'm sure he's a brilliant
guy. I'll show you his YouTube afterwards.
So just different things. Like you have to appeal to ego a lot, right? When you're dealing with really smart people, they know they're really smart and they want to be complimented. They want their ego complimented. If you are interested in what they are saying, they're going to keep talking, right? So they would teach us even like little sayings, like ask this question. I don't know, something about a prime number. Like, do prime numbers go on forever? I don't know, things like that. And I'm like, okay, I'll write that down and keep that in my book. But I'll never forget one of the courses, I don't remember which one, they had like a panel and they had all these, brilliant people on the panel and they were sitting on this little stage and somebody asked, about personalities and quirks and how do we really get in the mind of your type of people. And I'll never forget this guy. He goes, well, if you really want to get into our mind, go watch The Big Bang Theory. It's totally
show.
Accurate. Yeah. So I very proudly did my homework.
Oh, you went and watched
I
Big
did,
Bang Theory?
yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
You can talk like a nerd, walk like a nerd, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you talked to this girl, Sarah, and then I guess, because you were still so young, I guess CIA was still like, no, you're too young or whatever.
So I actually got offered a job at
you
that
did?
time. Yes. This is like one of my biggest personal failures, if you will.
Oh.
So I got offered a job, and the recruiter who I was talking to, this woman, she was like, look, it's in D.C. You're going to need a car. And I was like, okay. I had my first car was a very, very old Mercedes diesel. It would not have done well in D.C.
Mine
winters.
caught on fire on the Parkway a couple years ago. Yeah.
So I went out and I bought a new Jetta wagon, black. It had heated seats. I was very proud of myself, And then about probably 2 or 3 weeks before I was supposed to actually move to D.C. to take this job as like a clandestine service trainee, I got a call and she's like, I'm sorry, they've decremented the billet.
They've what?
They got rid of the job. They got rid of the billet. I don't know if it was a budget issue or what, but they were just slashing incoming people. And
it sounded like this was going to be more of a desk job, though, in D.C.
No, so it was actually a clandestine service trainee. So it was they bring people in to start the cycle of learning how to be a spy, how to be human intelligence.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah.
So they just X'd it.
They
I
were
guess
like,
the
"Bye."
budget was low.
Yeah, I don't know what it was.
What year is this?
Oh my gosh. I don't even know. This is early.
It's like 03, 04?
Yeah.
Our budget's... I mean, Dick Cheney was in office. What the fuck is this?
I don't know, but I cried for weeks.
Yeah.
Weeks. And then I ended up going to graduate school. And I thought, okay, so I told you I studied Arabic. Okay, I need to be more marketable, right? This is like, you're going to see a theme here. I constantly need to be better.
I like
smarter.
that you don't take no for an answer.
No, hell no. Never.
That's impressive.
Never.
Yeah.
One of my mottos is find a way to get to yes.
Yes.
Period.
There you go.
So I went and studied Arabic. I moved to Egypt and studied Arabic there. Yeah, by myself. Luckily bumped into a couple people I went to school with. Pure coincidence. I was like coming down the steps of the Egyptian Museum and I was like, hey, I know them.
You just completely alone,
Yes.
not knowing anyone,
Yes.
moved to Egypt.
Yes. To study Arabic.
Good for you.
Or stupid, one of the two.
Hey, listen, can't say you're not about it.
No, I throw myself in head first.
Where'd you live in Egypt? Cairo?
Yeah, in Cairo, in a little place called Zamalek.
I mean, I've been to Cairo like once, but I don't know the neighborhoods or whatever. But it's kind of weird because there's some areas that are like very, I guess, like Western influence there, and then there's areas that are like very Egypt, and it's like they're right next to each other too.
Or Egypt, as they say.
Egypt.
Yes. I was kind of in between. So I wasn't living where all the expats live. I was living more in a normal neighborhood. It was a nice neighborhood. Zamalek's a very nice neighborhood. What's it? That famous Egyptian actor, Omar Sharif.
Oh, yeah,
lived right down the street.
Yeah.
So I thought I was like riding high.
Yeah, you're bougie.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I bumped into these two guys I went to school with. I was living in a hostel. And they're like, hey, we just got an apartment and we have room for one more. You want to live with us? And I was like, well, I'm probably going to get beaten for being a woman living with men. But yes, I will live with you. So I lived with these two classmates and studied Arabic.
And if I understood this correctly, this was like a supplement to your master's degree you were getting? So it's not like you were getting the master's degree in Egypt. You just went there for how long was it?
3 months.
Okay, so like a summer or something like
Yeah.
that. Okay. So you're like buttressing up your resume. You're pissed off that the CIA said, fuck it to this job.
I'm going to be good enough for them.
You're going to be good enough.
Yes.
When does DIA come back into the picture?
So as I was getting my master's degree, some recruiters from DIA came. There was a guy named Craig and then a wonderful, wonderful human, Sharon Hoy, who is now retired. She lives in California again. And they came and they were talking, and so let me backtrack real quick. I used to work at Disneyland. This is related because this is how I got my job at Disneyland. Is I auditioned to be a character. Okay, who doesn't want to be a princess, right?
Yeah.
They were not looking for me.
Couldn't pass as Ariel or something?
Right.
I mean, come
I
on.
tried, but Mulan had just come out, and they were only looking for Mulan, and I'm not. Yeah.
They're like, fuck the mermaids.
Yeah, I know. I was like, but hair? No. So anyway, I had reached out to them and I walked up and just suddenly grew balls and I was like, Disneyland needs me. And here's 10 reasons why. And the guy just looked at me like I was crazy and I just started rattling off. These are all the reasons why. I don't remember anything. It just like in the second just started talking. And he goes, great, you're hired. And I went, oh, shit, that worked. And so when I met with these recruiters, I was like, full Disney. Like, I didn't say Disneyland. DIA needs me, and here's why. And it just started rattling off reasons why. And then Craig, the recruiter, he was like, let's go get a beer. So we went down. We were in Monterey, California. Went downtown and had a beer in a local pub. And I think he was trying to recruit me, but I was trying to recruit him, at the same time.
Yeah.
And then I applied, and Sharon, she went to my graduate school, so she was an alum. And then I just hit her up every now and then. And she would say, oh, it's still in the process, blah, blah, blah. Right. But when I got hired finally, which took like over a year, when I got hired, she was awesome. She was a huge supporter. And I spent my first Thanksgiving in D.C. with her and her family.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, just really, really a kind person.
Did they tell, when they have those first conversations with you and take you out to the bar, did they get it all somewhat personal about what their jobs had been within DIA or the things they had accomplished without revealing actually clandestine intelligence stuff?
Yeah. So Sharon was on the analysis side, and I did not want to go analysis. I did not want to sit at a desk. I wanted the human intelligence side. And the recruiter, Craig, he was a case officer. So I just wanted to hear every story that he had ever lived, as we're sitting there over the beer. And I think just personality-wise, I think he could see, like, I could talk to him. I don't know. It worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyone listening, like 10 reasons why you need me works.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty good opener.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, so. You have the balls to like go at your strengths right away.
Yeah.
Like,
but that was very outside of my norm. So.
But good for you.
Yeah.
So in that conversation though, did he start to go over, here's what makes us different at DIA versus CIA and what you were looking at? Like some of the stuff you explained earlier in this conversation?
No, not really. I mean, he did talk about the mission, And I think it was very important for anyone coming in to understand that it was different. It was a different mission. But I was all about it. I'm a very mission-driven person. Give me a mission and I'm all over it. So I was good with that.
Yeah, it's an interesting time too.
Yeah.
When he's recruiting you.
Yeah.
Because like, shit, we just went into Iraq at that point. Afghanistan had popped off. This is right after 9/11, a couple years. So it's like you're getting in there at a time where intelligence has probably never been more busy.
Yeah.
In the history of our country.
Absolutely.
Did you have any grasp of that concept?
Yeah, for sure. So my master's was counterterrorism, counterproliferation. Say that 5 times fast.
Wait, that's an actual master's?
I created it.
So wait, are you teaching yourself? What's going on here?
So my master's was international policy studies, and you could get a specialization. And it took me 2 years to convince the dean that counterterrorism and counterproliferation went together. Because at that time, if you think back, like September 11th, there were a lot of reports of Al-Qaeda they were gassing dogs and they were playing with WMD and there was Saddam and blah, blah, blah. And I was just super fascinated. And so what I saw was the future was they were going to go hand in hand, right? Malicious actors, terrorists, were going to start trying to use big, bad, scary things as propaganda, for attacks, whatever. So we didn't have enough classes. So I actually ended up taking a class at Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey to supplement all of the Miss Monterey Institute. Well, they've changed the name now. It's Middlebury Institute of International Studies. But to supplement those classes. And when I proved to the dean that everything fit and it made sense, right after I graduated, they created a program. So there's a program now because I was doggedly telling them this should go together.
Yeah, you were hitting it at the right time.
Yeah.
So you have every box checked in that way. And after a year, what was your name?
Sharon?
Craig and Sharon. So
Yeah.
Sharon gets back to you and says, all right, you can have the job. And you wanted to be in the espionage side, not
Yes.
on the desk side.
No.
So what's day one like? Is it, you said the training happens side by side at CIA at the farm?
Yeah. You don't start out they don't just toss you into the farm. They still need to vet you to a degree. So day one, I was terrified. I remember getting off a bus and meeting, they gave us mentors. And my mentor was a horrible human being.
Oh.
She was terrible. Kind of haunted me throughout my career for a while. But I got off the bus and she was one of those women that like do the elevator eyes, like, I don't like you automatically kind of thing.
Ugh.
It was one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her and her buddy were pretty horrible to me throughout the years. So that first day I was like, well, this is going to be fun. But they assigned me to a desk. I think, where did I start? I started in the Iraq task force. And then later was moved to the Afghan task force. So the cool thing about, and they could have put me anywhere in the world, right? Literally, like desk-wise. Huh. But I had lived in Egypt and I had studied Arabic and I had this background. And so that's why I got put there. And the cool thing was on that desk, you're supporting the people that are out on deployment. So you're still supporting the mission. When they wanted to recruit somebody, that packet would come across my desk. I would staff it, make sure everyone signed it, make sure it got, sent where it needed to get sent, things like that. So I learned a lot on the desk. However, nobody likes working at headquarters.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So I went through several trainings while I was there, like lower level human trainings, and then
human intelligence.
Yes, sorry.
Obviously, for people out there.
Obviously.
Yeah. It's got to make sure. Some people would be like, what is human? I don't know. Sound it out.
So yeah, we had different types of training, and then in I think December of 2007, I had come back from my first tour in Iraq as a human intelligence, like a collection officer.
So you got to go do one.
I got to go do one, but not as a case officer. It was like a case officer light. We called it. It was.
Can you explain that?
Yeah. How do I do it? So you go through specialized training. You learn the human intelligence recruitment cycle. You can recruit like in war zones, but there are certain types of people you can't recruit. Like if you were a case officer, I'd have to bring you in, pitch you with the case officer with me, and then that person would leave. Like just we give ourselves lots of rules. Some of them are very stupid.
But you follow.
But I follow them. Yes. So I was. It's called a field collection officer, FCO. So I did that my first tour. Then I went to the farm.
Right. Okay. So I'm trying to put the timeline together in my head because you're getting recruited by Sharon and Craig in like 03, 04. You find out maybe 05. You go to the desk outside of DC, I guess, in 05, 06.
Yes.
And then maybe it's like a year, 18 months there. Then they give you this case officer light type, mission. How long was that in Iraq?
So I spent my first tour was 6 months in Iraq.
And where?
Mosul. Both times I was in Mosul.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I hear that's right up there with like Rome and London on
I
my
would
list
love
of
to buy a
places
summer
to go
home.
to.
If you look at a timeline, and I've seen it, but if you look at a timeline of violence in the world, but in Iraq, Mosul, both times. So I was there 06, 07, and 09. And then I was in Afghanistan 11 and 13. If you look at the like spikes in violence, both times I was there, it was like these crazy spikes.
You brought the rain down to hell.
Yeah. Mosul was very, very interesting. But yeah, so I did that FCO until January of 08 is when I went down to the farm.
But let's talk about this though, because that's a long time to be in the place. And as you said, the shit was popping off there. Like,
yes.
So you've never you had traveled the world. You had put yourself into uncomfortable situations very well.
Very.
Like, I bet a lot of people in your position hadn't done that.
I got into Syria by dancing like Shakira. Just FYI.
While you were on the Mosul.
No, before I got into DIA. So yeah,
Right,
I was
back.
used to like these very weird situations.
All right, I gotta hear that story. Come on.
Well, I'm not a good dancer. I'm a wiggler. I can wiggle.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I was living in Egypt, I like redheads, I guess. Another redheaded girl and I, named Nicole, we traveled around the Middle East. And so we went Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. And when we traveled from Lebanon into Syria, like a lot of it was just kind of half-assed. Like, we're just going to wing it. I hitchhiked with Hezbollah, which really affected my security clearance.
With Hezbollah.
With Hezbollah. Our bus broke down in Lebanon, in Zakhle, which is near Baalbek, which is Hezbollah controlled.
Listen, it all sounds bad. Just keep going.
So the bus broke down, and here are these two like white redhead chicks with our big backpacks, like, anyone?
Were you wearing
the keffiyeh or anything? Yeah. No, hijab? No. And then this old beat up, God, I wish I had a photo. This old beat up 4-door Mercedes with bullet holes in the side and in the windshield pulls over, and her and I look at each other, and I just said, "We're from Canada, eh?" There's a lot more to that story. Anyway, so yeah.
I want to hear it though. You can't just say there's a lot more to that story and then not give me the. Well,
there was this really creepy dude in the back seat, and then she put me in the middle, and so I'm sitting next to this terrorist. And anyway, they drove us to our little hostel in Baalbek, which is where these incredible ruins are. It was beautiful.
So these were nice terrorists.
They were very nice.
Yeah, that's cool. All right.
But people can be nice when you play ignorant too, right? Yeah. But there's Hezbollah flags everywhere. And when we got to the ruins, I mean, these massive, picture like Greek columns and, there's this little museum. I have pictures. There's this little museum, and it looked like it was like, if that's the wall of the ruins, it was like built out from the wall. And so we walked in, and I'll never forget. So it's this long room, and on the left-hand side were like tables with like Hezbollah keychains and Hezbollah T-shirts and Hezbollah flags. And my master's thesis was on Hezbollah. So I was like, oh, I could bring this back for my, advisor. Like, how cool is this? On the right side of the room were like computer paper, really horrible printouts of like bombs, and like it was like U.S. and Israeli atrocities. And I was like, oh shit. And then there were 3 dudes sitting here. There was like a hallway in between. There were 3 dudes sitting there. And I looked at her again. I said, "Canada, eh?" Like, just a reminder. She's like, "Uh-huh." And we didn't want to back out because these dudes were like, who are you? What do you want? And so we're like, oh, and she spoke Arabic much better than me. And she's like, "Maybe look around." And they're like, "Mm-hmm." And we're like, okay. And so we walked in. The next room was, the diorama? You remember when we were kids, like those dioramas that you'd have to make with like in a shoebox?
Yes.
It was like a giant diorama.
Oh my God.
They had like a cardboard tank with like a hand with like a huge rifle sticking out. Like, it was stupid. But I was like, great, this is so cool. And there was one more room, and we're like, okay, we're in now. And the one guy got up and followed us. And I remember, like, maybe this is my practice spy days, but this is before digital cameras. So I had like the old like point and shoot camera. I had it around my neck here. And we walked into the room, and it was, like I said, it was a very long room. And I have a picture of this. There were probably about this high, these glass cases, and each case had 3 shelves. And they were probably about this wide, right? Just these glass cases. And they lined all the way around the room. And in each case were the remains of a suicide bomber. There were mangled wedding rings and glasses and photos and all of the, like, literally, you just walked in, and when we realized what it was, like, I started shaking, like, oh my God, like the death that these people have caused. It was crazy. And there was a TV right there at the end of the room, and Hassan Nasrallah, who is the leader of Hezbollah, was, blah, 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 blah. And I just looked at her, and I took a picture quietly, because why not? We're tourists. And we bugged out of there as fast as we could.
You left.
Yeah, we were like, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Shukran, yeah.
All right, goodbye.
Masalama. Yeah.
Let's get the fuck out of here. And they just let you walk.
They just let us walk.
These were very tame terrorists, I gotta say.
Yeah. I mean, we were very sweet.
More Borat type terrorists rather than,
A little bit.
Just saying.
Yeah.
All right, so that fucked up your security clearance later because you took a ride one time?
Well, it did. Well, maybe a couple other things. That was an issue. And because I was studying Hezbollah, again, you can't be an expert if you don't actually see things and learn them.
What's wrong with that?
Well, so I went to the tri-border area in South America, which is where Hezbollah is very active also. It's where Paraguay, Uruguay, and Brazil meet, where Iguazu Falls is.
What's the name of the... Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was thinking of something else.
The TBA?
No, I'm thinking of the wrong area. There's another thing down there where, like, everyone dies. What the fuck is it called, Alessi? That jungle? It's like where
the Amazon?
No, I was just there. But the where North America meets South America. It starts with a
like
D.
the Darien Gap.
Yes. That's not where you're talking.
No.
This is way
we
off.
were in Iguazu Falls, where the 3 countries meet. It's called the tri-border area.
Okay.
And
Can we pull that up,
Hezbollah
Alessi?
in Paraguay is very, very, very active. And I knew this. I was studying it. And again, I went and was a tourist and went to the waterfalls and then crossed the border into Paraguay. And in Ciudad del Este, there's these shopping malls. You can see it on the left. There are these shopping malls, and Hezbollah ran some of the shopping malls and some of the stores within different shopping malls. And so I was with an ex-boyfriend at the time, and we went and we're like exploring. And I was just trying to gather information. Like, I wanted to be an expert, right? And so we went, and there was a camera store we went into because I like photography. It was actually one of my covers for a lot of my operational work. And so I was looking at cameras, and the guy comes up, and there's Hassan Nasrallah on the TV behind him. And I was like, cool. Okay, know where we are.
We love Hassan.
Yeah, what's up? And we were talking, so I was like playing innocent and like asking about the cameras. And he goes, oh, I can give you a great deal. And I said, where do you get these? They're such a great deal. And he goes, they fall off ships going from Miami. I was like, wow, they just fall off. That's amazing.
You're like, you keep going?
Yeah. Anyway, so he invited me to Lebanon and to hang out with his family. And I was like, we're good. I don't need more friends. But those stories, obviously, like the background of the polygraph, they were like not happy.
But like your heart's in the right place on those things.
Yeah, maybe half stupid, but yeah,
it's like guys, I was practicing for you. You know what I mean? I
can talk to anybody.
That's it.
Right.
That's it. But you had cut off though because you broke down, and then they took you to Baalbek, and then you ended up having to escape this place, and it was in Lebanon. But you then. It started off, you were saying you had to dance
Syria.
Your way into Syria like Shakira.
Yeah, sorry. I told you I'd talk for 2 weeks if you let me. Like, I got more stories than anyone.
Listen, that's a good thing.
So when we left Lebanon and we were crossing into Syria, we were told you could just like walk across. That was not true. You had to dance across.
Oh, you had to dance.
So they let everyone in but me. So me and my friend Nicole.
You didn't dance well enough?
Well, I don't know. But the guy, they wouldn't let us in. They were just kind of being hard asses. Like, you're American. Like, what do you, why, blah, 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 blah. And we were like playing dumb. And no, we just really want to see Syria and da-da-da. And then I think it was either on the radio or TV. I do not remember. But Shakira came on, right? And I went, oh, Shakira, Bin Luban. She's from Lebanon, like Bin Lubnan, right? And they were like, like Colombia, Lebanon, like, right, the heritage. And so I was like trying to be like, cutesy, which I am not a cutesy person. And the guy cracked a smile and I was like, we're in. And so I just started like talking to him about music and Shakira and then like did a little hip thing, which was probably, my hips lie.
Oh,
my hips were terrible.
I'm on tonight and my hips don't lie, starting to feel it right. Oh my God. I can see the guy like, yes.
Welcome to our country. And we walked right in.
That is probably a story that not many people have.
No, and I will never tell my kids.
Okay. Well, guess what? Your kids are going to have the internet. So they'll be able to see this.
Yeah.
Guys, if you're still watching this video and you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please take 2 seconds and go hit it right now. Thank you.
All right, so we got on that tangent because we were talking about your first trip, though, to Mosul in 2007. Yes. So you touched down in Mosul for what's going to be 6 months as secondary case officer, right? You already laid some of that out. But you're getting there during a crazy fucking time, obviously.
Crazy.
But what's that like now that you're not, a tourist fucking around having a good time? You're actually in the game, dropping into a major war zone.
Yeah.
Can you even be prepared for that?
No.
Yeah.
No. I've never been in the military. I don't know how they mentally prepare for it, but I was not mentally prepared for it. I knew people that had been. I had gone through all the training. I had studied as much as I could, but there's nothing like, well, first of all, I think on that flight landing, in my memory, I was the only civilian. So everyone's in uniform, and then there's me, jeans and a T-shirt, right?
What are you on, like a military?
Yeah, yeah. So we got off the plane, and this is a whole new world, right? We got off the plane. We were in Qatar because you transfer from there into Iraq. And so when we got off the plane, there were these military guys like on the tarmac, like screaming at everyone as they're getting off the plane, like, all right, amnesty box, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, what's an amnesty box? If you got porn, if you got this, like put it in the box because we're going to search you. And I was like, and so everyone was just lining up in these formations. And I was like, where do I go? What do I do? I don't know what to do. So I'm kind of standing there just trying not to look stupid. And they're like, all right, we're going to search you. And so they put everyone in these lines and you're marching in these 2 lines into this tent where they're going to like go through all your stuff. And I was like, this is a different world. They don't do this in airports at home.
Yeah.
So I think that was like my first welcome, like this shock of like the rules are out the window. This is a totally different ball game than what you're used to.
And when you say like you're the only civilian on there, I mean, you're technically not a civilian. You're just not in the military, so to speak, right? But you're coming there in to support the military, so you're a part of the mission.
Yes. I was a DoD civilian, so I had a CAT card. I was on military orders. I fell under General Order number 1, whatever it's called. Like no drinking, no. Basically, you're straight edge, right?
Yeah.
So I fell under all of those. But still, like, I'm not in a uniform and I don't know all their stuff.
Got it. Okay. So whoever you were going to be reporting to wasn't coming with you. I guess you were meeting them there?
Yeah. You show up at your office.
All right. So once you cross the border from Qatar, by the way, is it Qatar or is it Qatar?
I say Qatar.
Yeah, I say Qatar too.
I think there was some like journalist many years ago that said gutter. It was gutter, right? They said gutter. And then it just took off and everyone said that.
Okay. All right. We're going to say Qatar now. So you crossed from Qatar into Iraq. Did you go straight into Mosul at that point?
Nope. Flew into Baghdad.
Okay.
Had to go down Route Irish, where everyone was getting blown up.
Yep.
So again, like welcome to Iraq. You're just like, oh God, I can't just like show up and then get blown up right away. Like
Were you
I got to do
scared?
something. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then we had a house there, like a headquarters for DIA. Stayed there for a few days, and then they got me a flight. They called a rotator up to Mosul. And going from Baghdad, which is a big city, to Mosul, which is a big city, but it looks like a dust bowl. Like it's not a big city like people think, was terrifying. And then in the beginning, I joked about discount intelligence agency, but this is where it all really formulated for me, is that the CIA was there, right? DIA was there. We were both running operations. But CIA had really strong guys, former Navy SEALs, they're ground branch guys. They'd go out in their up armored G-Wagons and they'd bring back the source and the case officer would debrief on base.
Yeah, you're talking about the GRS guys.
Yeah, the GRS guys.
Okay.
Yeah. I was given cars and trucks that were taken from raids. Like special forces would raid, they'd get this beat up truck and then we would get it somehow. So bad that one of the trucks, I was actually in Kurdistan, one of the trucks, the front axle fell out of the car. We were driving and then and everyone thought we got hit. We thought we got hit by an ID and it was like, are you okay? Are you okay? Everyone, body parts, everyone good? Everyone good? Yeah. And we got out because it was Kurdistan, so it was safe. We got out and the whole front axle was laying on the ground. Yeah. So that's the stuff we worked with. We weren't given radios. We had to use local cell phones that did not work. We weren't given the things that CIA was given to operate in this environment.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I have a lot of theories. But, budgets.
Let's fire away. Come on.
Just budgets. I don't know. I don't know if DIA has ever really been taken as seriously as CIA. And so money doesn't get funneled there. Or the money that got funneled there, whoever was in charge, put it in the wrong place. Because we had operators in the field who had nothing. We had nothing. And I did Mosul twice. So the second time I went back, at least I knew that. So it wasn't a shock. And I was able to basically form relationships with military units. There was a helicopter unit. So the second tour, I saw that we got hemmed up. We had trouble at checkpoints a lot in Mosul because we were running our own surveillance detection routes. We were picking up people and then we were bringing them back to base. Me as mission commander, right? It's my mission. But we had a lot of problems. And so my second tour, I went and befriended somebody who ran the helicopter, the unit that was there with air support. And I basically said, look, this is who I am. Obviously not Shawnee, but whatever my alias was. This is who I am. This is our mission. We're here to keep you safe, but we have nothing. Is there any way you could support us so that we can support you?
What was your cover?
In a war zone?
Yeah.
Didn't really have one. Everyone
You just
knows.
had a fake name and that's it?
Yeah.
But if they said, where do you work? State Department?
No, I never said State Department. It was DIA or DOD. Everyone knew. When you're in a military base in a war zone and everyone's in a uniform except for a few people in jeans and a t-shirt,
okay.
you're like, spies.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we go back for 1 second,
Yes.
though? Because I want to stay on this because this is like the trial by fire in the first one. Even though you're not full-fledged allowed to go do everything, you're on there for 6 months and you're at least, this is your first experience where you're told and for certain people you're allowed to go make a source and stuff.
Yeah.
So how, you talked about it earlier with the fact that it actually played to your advantage that you were a fair-skinned American girl, right? But you didn't know that until you actually did it. So when you got on the ground, first of all, did your commander say, hey, did they identify a clear problem and say, this is what we want intel on and here's the places we want you to go? Maybe here's some targets we already have for you. How did it come together?
A little bit of everything. So, for example, if there are a lot of IEDs, that's going to be primary mission.
Right.
We need to get these weapons cache, all these locations where the weapons are, and we need to destroy them. We need to arrest the people. We need to kill the people, whatever we need to do. So that would be priority. But there's also intelligence requirements. So requirements come down through the IC, the intelligence community, right? Saying, hey, there's elections coming up in Iraq. We want to know, what does this party think? And what does this person think? What are the right? So depending on the sources that you have or the recruited assets that you have, maybe someone could answer some of those. So you might pivot that relationship to start moving in that direction.
Yeah.
War zones finding sources, leads, much more difficult than it is in the real world.
I can
I
imagine.
can't pull up LinkedIn and be like, who wants to spy for me today? So we had a lot of walk-ins. So I formed a really good relationship with one of the CI counterintelligence agents that was on that base. And when I told him our mission. And so when he got a good walk-in, he would pass them to me so that maybe we would have a new lead.
What made people walk in? What were the key things?
Money, number one. motivations for everyone is different when you're talking about espionage, and it can change. Your motivations can change from one day to the next. So financial motivations was primary, followed by ideological or political, right? They didn't like what was happening to their country. They didn't like the politicians. They didn't like the terrorists beheading everyone in their city, things like that. So fear also, they're motivated by fear. They want to fix it. It's sad when you're driving on and off base and there are these little kids running around and you're like, all these kids know is war.
Yep.
That's crazy to me. My kids don't know war at all.
So sad.
And that's their whole life, you know? So that's kind of how we do it. And then also like relationships with other units. Sometimes they would know someone who knew somebody who wanted to talk and things like that.
Because they're going off base and obviously, yeah, absolutely. Did you you're also, I'm just thinking of the timeline, you're getting there within a year since al-Zarqawi was killed, who was essentially the founder of what became ISIS.
Yep.
But we're in that period now where I want to say al-Baghdadi got out of prison a couple years later, but either way, we're in that 2007 to 2013, 14 year period where that insurgency is starting to organize into ISIS itself. Did you guys, obviously you didn't have the name ISIS on it yet, but did you see like, oh shit, all right, we got Zarqawi, but this is going to get way worse.
Yeah, there was a lot of intel coming in about the formation of the groups. I think part of it was, I'm going to sound like a dick for saying this, but part of it is a lot of people when they get the intel, like you're my source, you're telling me stuff. I don't change it. I write what you say. Yeah. I'm assessing if you're suitable and all those things. I write it up and then I pass it to the analysts. And a lot of times I feel like analysts would be like very dismissive, like, no, it's impossible. They couldn't do it. We're here. We're there. Like, we're in the country. How could they organize this? You know, I just feel like there was a lot of dismissing in a lot of cases.
You think that's because they're just sitting at a desk? It's easy from behind there?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you were, bottom line is though, a lot of what you were developing during this time, those 6 months, was people were walking in and you had relationships on base so that it would get passed to you. And then you would start to put this together, make note files, get it to those analysts and try to develop leads from that to help the primary goal being the safety of U.S. soldiers.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. So your 6 month period ends. You get sent back to America. What are you doing in America now?
I bought a Mercedes.
Oh, you bought a Mercedes. A good one this time?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, when you think you're going to die, your priorities change a little bit. I was single, no kids. I was like, I'm buying myself a Mercedes.
Good for you.
Yeah. So I went back and worked on a desk. I think I went back to the Iraq task force until my next deployment. Well, then I went to the farm and then deployed again right after that.
Oh, that's right. You went to the farm. By the way, though, real quick, the desk for DIA, I think you said this earlier, is that literally in D.C. or is it in one of the towns outside?
In D.C.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you go to the farm in 2008.
Yep.
Now, it's just crazy to me. They sent you to Mosul for 6 months, and then afterwards, you can go to the farm now.
You can do it.
Yeah. So what in Mosul, did you carry a gun around?
Oh, yeah. I did not go anywhere without a gun.
All right, so you're already a good shot at that point.
Yeah.
But what are you doing at the farm?
So, I mean, you've had a lot of people on, I'm sure, talking about it. But you're learning tradecraft, right? You're learning how to recruit assets. You're learning how to keep them safe, how to teach them tradecraft, comms, stuff like that.
So, any key highlight memories from that?
That I can talk about?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I was very proud of myself. I'll tell you something I was very proud of. First of all, my class was the largest class, like, in the history of the farm. They had surged, and there were a lot of people. I felt very, very smart because in the very beginning, I'll talk to anyone. I love talking to people, probably why I was good at my job. But at the very entrance, there's a gate, and I befriended the gate guards. And so later on in the course, when they started really screwing with us, the gate guards would be like, hey, you might want to hide your stuff, or you might want to, they'd give me tips. And I was like, oh, that was so smart of me.
Yeah.
I didn't do it on purpose. But I was the only nerd. So when you are going through the course, you can go back to DC. You can go home for weekends. You can do stuff like that. I was the only nerd. I stayed every weekend and worked and cased and learned and studied because it's all I ever wanted to do, and failure was not an option at all.
Well, clearly.
Yeah.
And like you got that in you. But
Yeah.
like when so people are leaving for the weekends and stuff, it's not like, I guess there's no class going on during that. Are you like in the library just studying?
No, I would be casing, a lot of casing in the
What do you
area.
mean casing?
So area familiarization, driving
Okay.
around, kind of like criminals do if they're going to hit, they're going to rob somebody's house or something.
You
They're
just
gonna,
casing McLean, Virginia?
Well, it wasn't in McLean, but we're driving around. We're learning the roads. We're learning the areas. It's area familiarization. I want to know when the stores are open and closed, what stores open late, because you might need to do a quick stop, things like that. So I just drove and drove and drove, and you're drawing maps of places and like, okay, you entered this way and you exit this way. Like people don't think of espionage as like very admin, but it's very admin heavy.
Yeah.
Very admin heavy.
Yeah, I've had people talk about how it's like, God, some people have worded it this way better than I remember it. But essentially, they're like, great spying is boredom, 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 firework.
Yeah.
Like, and you're all that boredom time, the job is to not fall asleep. Because when you get to that firework, it's like, whoa, baby, here we are.
And then after that, paperwork.
Yeah, I'll bet. Yeah, the note. I mean, how does that even work though, too? Because when you're doing like a post-case report, or what do they call it?
What, the intel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
so
when,
there's reports you write with the intelligence, but there's reports you write saying like, Julian was very nice. He took a nap, and you're writing up about that person.
right, but is it like, you know how when you look at the legal system, like everything has to be written like a specific way? Is it they have their own system like that too? Or are you more or less just like dumping all the information you have in as organized way possible, however you want to do it?
So it's supposed to be like there's a format. There's a
Okay.
way you do it. I like telling stories, if you can't tell.
Yeah.
And so I tended to get beat up a little bit because I put too much detail in, I was told. So for example, in one of my reports, I met with a female, I can't say where, but during the meeting, like she had a ton of jewelry on, like very like Gladys Got Rocks kind of thing. My grandpa used to call my grandma that. And she had like this chaise lounge, and the whole meeting she was like laying, I'll move this. She was like laying on her side with her feet out, like a princess.
Like Rose in the Titanic.
Yes,
Clothes on.
exactly.
Yeah.
Thank God her clothes were on.
Right.
But I wrote up in the report because for me, it really described her personality, right? If I get hit by a bus, I always looked at like if I get hit by a bus and someone's going to come in and take this case, I want them to know all the nuances about this person, all the buttons to push, their motivations, their vulnerabilities, right? And so I wrote up, like I said, she acted like she was the Queen of Sheba, right? With all the jewelry and lounging in the thing, and like her demeanor was very regal, which I thought was important. And people gave me so much shit for it. They were like, that's not relevant. So my reports were probably a little long.
Yeah, but still, I agree with your mindset there. Like, you have to think like that. If I were dead tomorrow,
Right.
and I'm the intelligence asset, right? Like, you can't download my brain. So, to me, intelligence would be, it's not necessarily this, and this does not apply to a lot of things in life, but with this, less is not more.
Right.
When it comes to actually
Information.
Yeah.
Yeah. You would think. And I think I started doing that because I had cases where I took over a case and the folder's empty. It's like, I know nothing about this person. What do they like? Do they like food? Like how do I give them food for a meeting? I don't know what they're allergic to. I don't know,
Yep.
Do they have kids? Can I talk to them about kids? And so after having like multiple bad turnovers like that, I was like, I would never do that to someone. So I'm just going to put extra in.
Yeah, good for you. How long were you at the farm?
It's about 6 months.
Okay, and you said it was the biggest class of all time, but it was both CIA and DIA. Was there
Correct.
anyone else from any other agencies there?
Yes.
Are you allowed to say?
Probably not.
Okay, all right. Yeah, you don't have to say. So, and you can't say like how big the class was, I assume, right?
Very, very big.
But it was big.
And a lot of people didn't make it either.
Yeah, how did people what kinds of things would people get cut for?
I heard stories like there are people that got cut for integrity, like getting caught in lies. That's a big one for them. Just sucking in general at certain things, like be it building rapport or map tracking or surveillance detection. you can't be bad at really any of those because everything is really so integral to everything else.
Okay. You weren't there when Snowden was there.
No.
Okay. He went to the farm, pretty sure. Do you have an opinion on him?
Yes.
Feel free to share it.
I think what he did was wrong. I think there are different ways that you could have gone about that, and it hurt a lot of people. I think anybody that reveals secrets like that, I don't care who you are, what your motivation is, there's always another way to do it. And leaking things to WikiLeaks is not the way to do it.
So it's a complicated one for me because I've heard both arguments in here. And there's a lot I like about Ed Snowden. I also look at it like that's the ultimate stuck between a shit and a fart because he had a slippery slope, in my opinion, on both sides. And I struggle with this all the time and I kind of go back and forth on it. But it's like on the one hand, it's like you're what are you supposed to do? Go up the chain of command, right? And then get it to a place where, there can be some sort of organizational agreement on we need to change things or go to internal affairs and figure out what we're doing here. He did try to do that a bunch, and they told him to fuck off because they wanted to keep doing this shit. Mm-hmm. So on the one slippery slope, you have the Constitution, and it's going like this. On the other slippery slope, and I understand this perspective, and this is probably where you're coming from, but don't let me put words in your mouth. On the other slippery slope, you have the now someone has broken the chain of command of intelligence to reveal things that they signed in their life that they are not going to reveal, which could put assets of ours in danger in doing that. Also a slippery slope, because you can then have someone like Edward Snowden, let's say it's something extremely serious, which I think his situation was extremely serious, what he leaked there. The next person could be just a little less serious. Be like, yeah, but you let Snowden do it. And then you keep going down and down and down. And eventually, someone's leaking basic information that really doesn't matter. And they're fucking over a lot of people. So I get that. But at the same time, as someone who, loved the intelligence world that you worked in and obviously saw a lot of the great work that happens around the world, I'm not one of these people that let's rein in all the agents. Listen, it's got to exist. It's a shitty world out there. There's stuff that happens. But I am one of the people that says, wait a minute. You're not supposed to be spying on American citizens and shit like that. And a guy like Ed Snowden at least gave us that information. Like, bro, they were looking at all of you. They could have all your information. How do you face that as someone who's from that community? I think,
I hate to say it, but the intelligence community, the government as a whole, can do better. When I was there were a lot of situations I was in that were very bad. I mean, if Me Too existed back then, I'd have about 10 lawsuits, right? If I were litigious. There are a lot of wrongs that I saw done. I had to turn in my best friend at the time for doing a lot of really wrong things.
Really?
And there was no confidential reporting. There was retaliation was rampant. It was career destroying. But it's choosing, like you're saying, like something is wrong and I need to do the right thing, integrity, versus I'm turning my friend in for a lot of really bad stuff. Right?
Yeah.
Why I'm saying that is because there were a lot of different processes and a lot of things that they could have done to support both of us, and they didn't, right? Regardless of who you are, what the situation is, the government needs to do better. I mean, we could get into talk about Havana syndrome and what they're doing for the people that are hit by Havana syndrome.
Yeah, what's going on there?
Oh, my God, don't even get me started.
Let's get started. That's what you're here for.
Yeah. I actually just lost one of my closest, oldest friends. She was hit in Vienna with Havana syndrome. About a year later, developed some stage 4 mystery, weird cancer out of the blue. Fluke that they caught it. And she just passed away about 2 months ago. Yeah. So, but the government needs to do better. With her, for example, her name was Zoe. With her, she's this amazing human who, she was class 11. She joined the CIA, September 11th.
Oh, wow.
She was class 11. She worked for 21 years all around the world, working on some incredible operations, was quiet. Nobody knew she existed, never got married, never had kids, sacrificed everything for her country, right? And then she gets hit with this while she's in Vienna. She's stationed in Vienna. And the support that she received was not as good as it should have been.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's a campaign right now to put a star on the wall for her at CIA headquarters because we, and Jim Lawler's one of them, we believe that without this Havana syndrome, whatever this, RF or microwave radiation energy weapon or whatever was used on her, we believe that that contributed to her demise. And we think that she needs to be honored on that wall. Because if she wasn't in Vienna, if she wasn't doing her job, that wouldn't have happened to her.
Where do you think this stuff is coming from? Because, and also, this is such a strange conversation. Like, to me, when I first read about it, I'm like, unfortunately, I'm like, makes sense. Like these are the kinds of things people are working on.
Yeah.
But there's literally this whole thing where people are like, oh, it doesn't exist or whatever. It seems to me like it exists.
It exists. It exists.
So where's it coming from?
I don't know. I'm clearly a nation state, right? This is not fake. I know the news has come out and said Russia. Surprising? Not at all. Are they in collusion with anyone else? I don't know. But the fact that there are hundreds and hundreds of people, including family members, who have gotten zapped with this, we need to do better. I mean, it was in front of the White House. Like, it happened in front of the White House. Yeah.
When? Really?
Yeah.
I didn't hear about that
a couple years
one.
ago. This is very, very real. And when Zoe came back, I remember her talking about like when it happened, and she described like her bedroom, like there was a wall, like windows in front of her bed. Her bed was facing the windows, and she said she was getting ready for bed. And when you're like, you just get in that comfy position, and you're like, that's it. You're gonna fall asleep in that position. She said she'd just gotten like in the position, and she said, when you go through a train or in a tunnel or something, and you hear this,
Yep.
like your head. She said she felt that, heard that, and then had this excruciating pain in her brain. And she grabbed her phone was on the nightstand. She grabbed her phone. She said she screamed and ran out of the bedroom. And she said as soon as she left that bedroom, it stopped. Right? They can only get you with the windows or whatever the parameters are. So as soon as she got off the X, so to speak, it was over with. But when she came back, they were doing all these crazy brain scans and all this stuff. And she had like blindness in one eye. Like she had like lasting issues that did not exist before this happened.
So, but when she left the room and it stopped, like that sound and that feeling stopped.
Everything stopped.
But then when she like came to.
She was jacked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right
This
away.
stuff is very real. Yeah.
It's scary because it's like, okay, right now it's something where the X is focused on one, they can get into one room or something,
Exactly.
but how close are we to where, you just put off a pipe bomb?
But think about all of the people that work for the State Department or the CIA or the DIA or what have you, and they're bringing their families overseas just to do their job, right? And these people, their little kids are getting hit. Those kids didn't do anything. Like stuff like that, that's what makes me mad. Like we can do better.
And they're not, and as you said, and I've heard this story, I think even, I hope I get this right because it's been a while, but I think even Mark Polymeropoulos, who has it, who, loved working at CIA and loves the agency and all that, like I believe he even has a huge issue with the lack of support that he's gotten because that ended his career.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very true. He knew Zoe too. Yeah.
See, that's something there smells.
No, absolutely. But I just get really angry because I know what I gave up, right? And I left so that I could have kids. I left so I could build my own little family, especially as a woman. And it's different. Men and women in this field, it's very, very different. What you put up with, what you deal with, all of that. And so for people like Zoe to give up your whole life and dedicate your whole life to your country, to your government, and then to just be dropped, right, and told like it's in your head, it's not real. Like that's what makes me mad.
That's not. You also have like all these different people from all different ends of the intelligence spectrum who are getting hit with it and reporting it, and these aren't. No disrespect, these aren't people who like slipped and fell on a crack and are like trying to sue someone for $1 million with the fucking accident attorney.
Right.
It's not.
It's not hot coffee in the lap.
Right.
Yeah, this is real.
Yeah, they're getting really fucked up by it. I'm really sorry you lost your friend.
Thank you.
That sucks. God damn.
You gotta look. This just came
Oh
out.
wait, do we have something up on the screen?
Yeah, this just
Oh,
came
what
out literally today.
New report reveals Havana syndrome case numbers. More than 300 Americans treat. Oh, can we click that Miami Herald?
Yeah.
Let's try that. All right, go down. Fuck, this always happens. Go back.
Oh, that came out yesterday.
Yeah, let's
This
see.
one's 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, let's do this one.
How funny.
What was that headline? Let's see. Report reveals 300 plus people, including children, affected by mysterious Havana syndrome. Now let's go down. Sorry. All right. A new report to Congress revealed that more than 300 people, including children, are facing an invisible enemy once known as Havana syndrome. Who the fuck changed
Now I
the
think
name?
they're calling it something else.
Oh, God.
I think it's like AHI.
Oh, God.
Anomalous health issues.
What are we like? What's
Oh, yes. Anomalous health incidents.
What's the Havana phobia or something? They're probably going to make that up. All right. The report issued by the Government Accountability Office said 334 U.S. government employees and family members, including 15 children, suffer from anomalous health incidents, or AHI, often categorized by severe headaches, blurred vision, and vertigo. The exact source of the ailments is unknown. In 2016, Department of State staff at the U.S. Embassy in Havana, Cuba, began experiencing a sudden onset of symptoms, usually following a loud sound. One of the affected, Kate Husband, who served as a State Department consular officer in Havana until her diagnosis led her to retire on medical disability, spoke exclusively to NBC News in 2021. Quote, "It was persistent, the same level all the time, very, very loud. It's nothing you could sit with," she said. On our right was another embassy family, and then the people on our left and across the streets from us were both Canadian embassy employees, and in the end, all 4 households were diagnosed. She has been diagnosed with, quote, "acquired brain injury related to a directional phenomenon exposure," unquote. Although it was dubbed Havana syndrome, cases have been reported around the globe. According to a new report, Americans affected by the mysterious symptoms may struggle to get care, but laws do require the Department of Defense to treat those diagnosed with the poorly understood condition. Those affected often face challenges getting care at home. The report details they are unsure who to contact, have limited benefit information, and experience difficulty scheduling appointments, and say they lack communication from the Department of Defense. Wow, that's fresh off the press.
But notice how they're starting to even change the name, right? Instead of UFO, now it's UAP or whatever.
Yeah, why do we do this?
I don't know.
Why do we make it more complicated?
But I think what's frustrating for those of us who knew Zoe, especially, is that I recently found out that the CIA is paying people who were hit with this. So you're getting payments, like a benefit, but they're still not acknowledging that, that it's real or that it is what it is. They're not coming out with information. So that's what's frustrating us.
Yeah. It's something to pay attention to, because whether we like it or not, I mean, you talked about it, thinking about this in 03, 04, like, the size of weaponry that they could now do on mass scale was scaring you.
Yep.
That's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about an age of AI. You're talking about an age of fucking microwave weapons and shit. Like, the more I look around now, the more I am I don't know if that's the right word, but you'll understand what I mean. The more I am appreciative of just how fucking fragile society is, and how many things, like, the number of ways we could end the world right now without even using the word nuclear is scary.
Yeah, which is why I got into cybersecurity.
Ooh.
But no, it's true. It's true. I mean, they make all these doom and gloom movies, but when you watch them, you're like, oh my God, that could really happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's scary.
Yeah. I mean, even if you look at like the alien stuff, they'll talk about, well, where'd they get that in the movies? What were they rated on? I don't know.
It makes me want to be a prepper. I'll say that.
Yes. Yes. There's a lot more of that going on. When I had Sean in here, he was like, "You ready?" I'm like, "For what?" And he's like, "You got a go bag." I'm like,
"Do you?"
I'm like, "Should I?"
Where's your water?
And he's like, "Oh my God. All right, we're gonna make a list for you." And it's no joke.
I'm sure.
Like he's been ready. This is not like a year ago.
Yeah.
This is like, this dude's been thinking about this for a decade.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's like, if the world ends, like, that man, shout out to Sean. I think you'll be good.
Yeah. We're all going to his house. That's where I'm going. I wasn't invited, but I'm going.
Show up and cash my check and be like, "Hey, you told me I could come down and visit.
Remember me?
I'm here."
Yeah.
Anyway, so we got on this tangent, though. When we were going in between your tours, we got through the farm. What was going on there? You left the farm after 6 months. Did you go directly to Mosul again after that?
No. I PCS to another location in the U.S.
PCS?
I moved on military orders. They moved me to another location for my new assignment. So I worked there, and then I wasn't there very long before I went back.
Okay. So now this time you're going back as a full-blown case officer. Yes. You have gone through the whole farm training and everything, and now the way I understand it is, if you explained this earlier and I got it right, you're able to go out there and based on what you're told they want to get and make decisions,
Yep.
talk to anyone you want to.
Pretty much, well, to a degree.
Okay.
There's a lot of mother may I with, hey, I want to approach this person. The agency, CIA, we had to run things through them too, even for recruitments.
Oh, you're running it through CIA.
We were the redheaded stepchild. Yeah, we had to ask, may we please? And look, I love the agency. I love all my agency friends. But man, they stole some of my good leads.
Oh, they did?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So it gets old. You know, like there's, and this is not war zone. This is like real world where I had a lead who, how do I describe it? He had access to like a country of interest who was developing a nuclear weapons program. And he had some access that was really cool. And I found him and I developed him and it was going really good. And then I got a cable from the agency saying, stand down. I was actually going to go meet him in Prague. And it was a really cool hotel, so I was really excited. And agency's like, nope, sorry, we're going to take this. Thank you.
No, but you're the one who developed the relationship.
Doesn't matter.
But is that guy just going to like see someone else walk up and be like, yeah, okay, I'll deal with you? Like,
I'm sure
personal.
they had to bump. They had a different approach, right? Maybe that guy had a kid and they put him in Cub Scouts together or something. But yeah, they were like, thank you very much.
Suddenly the kid needed a surgery.
Right.
Something like that. Like, oh, look, he broke both of his legs.
I know. We don't know how it happened. Yeah.
Fuck. Hey, get the bat. So sometimes they would steal stuff, but when you were in that one was not in the war zone, as you said, obviously you're meeting them in Prague. Yeah. But like when you're in the war zone in Mosul and you're doing the whole Mother May I thing and then you go out, you're doing it alone. So I would imagine there's some details you obviously can't give because you don't want to give away like who sources were. But can you describe the first one you did alone on a broad level, like what kinds of things they were into and maybe where you had to go get them?
Yeah, I have a lot.
All right, let's go through the list.
I'll tell you the first one. Remember, I had all those men telling me that I wasn't going to succeed and no one would talk to me. So that was in my head. And the first meeting I had was a turnover. So the case officer that was running this person was supposed to do like a warm and friendly, this is Shawnee, whatever my name was. Yeah, this is Shawnee. She's so great. You're going to love her. Like talk me up. Yay. And then they're going to leave. And then I do that to the next person when I leave, right? Well, this dude did not do that. He was like, peace out. This is Shawnee. Bye. It's happened to me twice, by the way, in my career. It pissed me off both times. So I'm sitting there staring at this person like, oh my God, they're not going to talk to me. That person, that outgoing CO did not talk me up. Like, ugh. But it was fine. We got along fine. And that op, this person had access to a computer network that terrorists were using. Basically, that ISIS, before they were ISIS, all of those groups, they were using. And so on that op, we had to get access to that network. And so I was able to work with CIA, and they helped outfit basically just a really special thumb drive, right? And this person just had to use any computer that was connected to that network, plug that in, and then the intelligence community probably owns that for perpetuity. You know, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's a lot of good intelligence for sure.
Yeah.
Did you... I mean, you said there were a lot there, so we can go through some of them, I'm sure. Like, how long a list are we talking?
How much time do you have?
Like, are we talking? On this second Mosul engagement? Are we talking like 100 people?
No.
Okay, I was gonna say that would seem like kind of high, but either way,
I would never sleep.
It's not one or two.
Yeah, no, there's a lot more.
Okay,
there's a lot more. So,
did you ever lose a source?
No. I don't know why I knocked on wood. I don't have sources now, but I'm still knocking on wood.
I don't know.
That was not a towel. That was not a towel.
I don't know about that. What'd you say? You work for Merck now?
No. I own my own company.
I know, but like you did some work for Merck?
I did, yes.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, he's watching my hands.
Okay. All right. But so you never lost. Did you have close calls?
No. No. I was lucky.
What makes a good? Because these people are agents, right? They're not case officers. They're people that you recruit to say work for Team America now.
Yeah.
As Jim would say. But I would imagine a lot of them are like your first one, where the reason you're getting them as a source is because they're constantly in what will now be an extremely dangerous environment for them. Because if they're caught, their head's going to get chopped off.
Especially this person, yeah.
Right, and probably their whole family. What makes you say to yourself, this person not only is a good source with information, but they're going to be all right because they can do the job?
I don't know that I ever was that confident with people because people change, right? You could wake up one day and think, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm scared. My next door neighbor just got beheaded. And that was the situation, right? There were literally bodies littering the streets constantly. It was really, really bad. And so for any of these people to have the balls to walk around some neighborhood for some team of Americans, I had a driver. I couldn't drive. I'm a woman. I don't blend in. I'd wear a hijab in the back, but I'd have a driver and an interpreter. And then I'd be sitting in the back. That's a group of Americans, right? So we would do a surveillance detection route. We would go pick up that person at a predetermined location. We'd have safe signals and, if I've got to drive by or if you're late or all those things. But that person is absolutely, literally putting their life on the line just to get in that car with us, right? And then we got to drop them off somewhere, right? So I was never fully confident that I could trust anybody. And still to this day, I probably have that problem. That person could wake up and just decide, I'm done.
But not even just that's an important point, because you're constantly dealing with someone who they have to go do it, and they're in the middle of it. Not to say your job isn't dangerous, but they're literally living in it. But also, for the people that maybe aren't going to waffle, or that's less your concern, they still have to be able to do it, and you don't want to lose them.
Right.
So, if you have someone who's not, maybe, I'm just using a hypothetical, they're not going to waffle, they're all about it. They're gung-ho, we want to do this. But you're like, oh, shit, they're going to make a terrible spy.
Right, because they think they're James Bond, probably. Yeah, that's another extreme. You want people you can control, which makes us sound super creepy, right? But we need to be able to control you. If I say, do not display, I don't know, something in your window, if X happens, you do not do that. And we're testing. We're constantly operationally testing.
Oh,
I need to make sure you're actually following directions. Because if you're not, that's a big problem. That's going straight in the report, and we're going to assess, do we continue this relationship? It's that serious.
Did you ever fire anybody?
Oh, yeah.
Sources?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right, so what was one you fired?
Very nicely, right?
We don't want to work with you at CIA anymore. Thank you for coming. Fill out a survey on the way out.
It's not you, it's me. Yeah.
So why'd you fire somebody?
Well, one in particular was just kind of trying to be nice. He was very, very smart. One of those people I described in the beginning. He was very, very smart. He had incredible access. He was totally willing to play ball. He did everything I asked him to do, but he started straying and coming up with his own ideas. Number one, that's dangerous. Number two, and this is when phishing emails and stuff were just kind of starting, I had a special email account just for him, and I started getting emails from his account that were not from him. Things like, hey, I've traveled to Spain and someone stole my wallet and I need money. Now everyone's like, yeah, we've seen that 25 times. But at the time I was like, this dude doesn't travel to Spain. What is this? So that account had been compromised. To what degree, we don't know. So with some of his suitability issues and that, I had to break up with him. Terminate, as we say.
I know, but are you worried that they're going to be pissed off and suddenly...
No, because you do it you're nice. You do it nicely. Just like a breakup, right? You don't want that person you're breaking up with hate you forever. Am I wrong? No.
That's usually how it goes, though.
Well, that's because people don't like being dumped.
Yeah.
So you're doing it where it's the benefit to them. The benefit to you is you're not going to die, right? We're going to keep you safe because you're not working with us anymore.
Yeah, okay. But that means, if you're paying them, that stops the payments and stuff, too. So they can't be happy about that.
Yeah.
Most of your sources you said money is a huge influence. Are you paying pretty much all of them?
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
You can't recruit someone if they won't take money. And that happened with the mullah that I told you about.
Oh.
Yeah, he wouldn't take money.
The Laden guy. We're going to get there.
Yeah.
Coming up on that.
Yeah.
What are we in, 09 now in Mosul?
06, 07, 09. Yes.
Okay.
Second one, 09.
So you're living like on the base, but you're going. You still get walk-ins, obviously, right?
Yeah, they walk into the base through like that CI shop I was telling you, and then that CI shop would filter down.
Right.
Yep.
Wait, when you say CIA shop, you did mention that earlier. Is that like a? So it's like a cover store or something like that.
Oh no, sorry. The counterintelligence officer, basically, he was hired to screen people who were walking in and to help with investigations. So like there are local nationals that work on bases. Everyone knows that, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe if someone's something's not right, then he would investigate and make sure it's not really a bad guy trying to infiltrate and blow up a dining facility or something like that.
Like the dude in 09 in was that in Pakistan? Or was that again El Belawi, the Jordanian?
That was in Afghanistan.
That was in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
It blew up all kinds of
Yeah.
CIA officers and
Yeah.
stuff. So that, yeah, because like I've seen it, I've read about it in books, you know, the walk-ins, and then obviously we've seen it in some of the Hollywood movies, but that I'm always questioning a little more. But like some of the actual historical books, they'll talk about this, and a lot of times it sounds like, or sometimes I think they've just straight up said it, like, oh, so-and-so actually literally walked into the embassy or walked into this. And I'm always thinking to myself, a lot of these guys, though, like, what if they got seen doing that?
Yeah.
You know? So when you say CIA shop, my head goes to, like, you know, is there like a
store.
like a fabric store or something, and you walk in and order?
Come buy a scarf and tell us your secrets.
Yeah, like something like that. Like, did you guys have anything like that?
No.
So it's literally there.
Yeah.
You get them in the back door or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
All right.
I do want to say, though, you had asked about money and motivations, right?
Yeah.
I still think this is funny. It still tickles me. So after money, in Iraq and Afghanistan specifically, the number 2 and number 3 things I was asked for was Viagra and Johnny Walker Black Label. They were partying, man.
What a combo.
Right?
Yeah. You know what? There's some stuff I can't say on there. I talked with one guy off air who I had in here who spent a lot of time in Afghanistan, and some of the shit he told me
Yeah.
about what they're into. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting. Interesting intel for sure.
Yep.
So they needed Viagra,
Yes.
and they thought you were like the Viagra lady.
Evidently. What can I give you? Here's my dispensary.
You just like opening up your
Yeah.
sleeves. What do you want? What do you want?
Pain pills? Viagra? Oh, you don't like Viagra. You like Cialis? We've got that too.
We
Here.
got that. We got you covered. It's
Blue
from
or pink?
It's from a gas station
Right.
too. You wouldn't know. So, how long was the second Mosul engagement?
6 months also.
All right. Now this is like, again, we're farther along the line. So again, what's going to become ISIS is forming. It's getting worse than it was in 07.
Yeah.
So Mosul at this point, it's already, like you said, like a dust bowl.
It was bad.
Right. Because once ISIS was done with it in like 14 or 15, it was even worse. I
Yeah,
mean,
which makes me sad because if anyone's been there, there's like the Mosul Museum. They have incredible history, and there's a big Assyrian population, and just the wing bowl, if anyone's ever seen that. It's a bowl with like wings, and I don't know. They just have some really amazing history. And there were places like I would like hop a helicopter and try to fly places to go beg for help and support. And I remember on one flight, we flew over these ruins that were just incredible.
Yeah.
Those are toppled. You know what I mean? Like all these cool things they've just destroyed.
Yeah. I had my friend Matt LaCroix has been on the podcast a bunch. He's one of these ancient civilization historians. And he goes deep. I mean, he goes like, sometimes I'm like, all right, slow down. But, you know, he and I disagree on some stuff vis-a-vis the Iraq War as it pertains to some of the history that was destroyed and stuff. But he makes a good point about how much ancient history exists in that region in particularly, and how much of it
It's gone.
it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like in Syria. I mean, I'm so glad that I secured my way into Syria because I saw Palmyra, Tadmor. I saw these things again that ISIS has destroyed since.
Yeah, and now like in the wake of ISIS in all these different countries, there's these residual messes. Like when I had Joby in here recently, my Joby Warwick, who's been on 134 and 198 in here, but when I had him in, he was talking about how what was the name of that drug, Alessi? Not Trank.
It's like the freaking
What the hell
E.
is it?
It's like E.
Yeah,
But
it's like
in-
ecstasy, but it's
in
called
Italy.
something else.
Yeah.
What the fuck is it called? I forget. He was describing it like he was trying it all the time. I'm like, oh, Jovi. He's like, I haven't tried this. I'm like,
My friend told me.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. He's like, this is what people have said. But he was at the border of Syria, I guess, on the Israel side or something back in the fall. And it's basically turned into a narco state where they're just bringing this shit at will. I don't know if it was Israel. I forget what border it was, but they're just bringing it at will across the border because the whole southern half of the state already, like with Syria, it's not even.
Yeah.
Its borders are on a map, but it's not even theirs.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like the number of intelligence failures that can happen in a space like that, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it's pretty messy. And it's sad. Again, seeing all that before when it was really cool and existed and they weren't terrorists and we could walk around and it was safe, reasonably safe. It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's hard. I'm a big history buff. It's very heartbreaking for me.
What is there any type of history you like better than others?
Yeah, I told you I'm a nerd. I like political history. So I am fascinated. Maybe it's because of my past, but like I am fascinated with the psychology of like cult of personality. So like I've got some old, and I'm not a communist, but I have. I say that because I'm scared to like hang these because people are gonna be like, she's a communist.
Oh, the comments are just gonna start flowing in now.
I've collected. My dad got them for me actually in China, but these original posters from the Cultural Revolution in China. I have 4. I have an original Little Red Book from Mao Zedong.
Oh wow.
I have whole like the fighter helmet, like the leather fighter pilot helmet with the goggles from Russia when it was Soviet Union.
Yeah.
I've got rank, like a full set of Russian rank, like just cool. I don't know. I just like political history.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
I don't know. But I think I'm not like your average girl.
Definitely not. But that's okay. Like I'm into that too. I mean, I think, especially now, I can't help but study when you look around the world at all the different world leaders and the back and forth we see, like boom, boom, like the divide. It'll go from hard left to hard right and hard right back to hard left. It's impossible to not look at some of the patterns in history where different people, different types of situations, but same themes occurring. That's a little scary for me.
Yeah. No, I agree. And you look at what has happened with like Pol Pot in Cambodia or even the Cultural Revolution in China, like millions of people were killed.
Yeah.
Families were turning against each other, friends against each other. Like it just blows my mind that that's possible.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm so interested in it.
I mean, Xi Jinping's origin story is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, as I try, I want to be clear. I don't have empathy for terrorists and stuff like that. But I want to, when I see like a hardcore dictator or a hardcore terrorist, I do try to understand from my piece of the pie here, whatever that is, to say like, to figure out how did they get there? Because how can we figure out one less of them in the next generation, right?
Same.
And you see Xi Jinping, like the shortened story, his father was in the Communist Party, pissed off the Communist Party with something, right?
Yep.
He got kicked out, and then Xi Jinping, who was like 5 or 6, was forced to wear a sign in the middle of town that basically said, "My father is a traitor to the Communist Party, I'm scum." And his mom had to walk by and I believe spit on him at one point. And so this guy who, he is a very smart guy. I have to give him that. Bad guy, but smart guy. His whole life was like, oh, I'll fucking show you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to spit on me? You're going to make my mom spit on me? I'll be in charge of this shit.
Yeah.
And that's how the sociopath is born.
Yeah. People's childhood shapes them so much into adulthood. I mean, if you look at Bruce Ivins, for example. Bruce Ivins was the suspected anthrax letter guy.
Yes.
Right? He committed suicide.
Yep.
There's a book, I think it's called Mirage Man. It's a fabulous book. I highly recommend it. It's so well written. I'm an insider threat, like, I don't know, expert, devotee. I love all things insider threat. I used to recruit the insiders. But reading his story shows you all the red flags from childhood, like the abuse that he suffered from his parents.
Can you expand upon this?
Yeah. So he had just really horribly abusive parents. He went through as he was younger and went into college. I mean, he had all kinds of other issues, but went into college and started like stalking sorority girls, broke into the sorority house, stole their little, I don't know, like a little sorority Bible thing. I don't know what you call it. I was clearly not in a sorority. Stole that, harassed and stalked other women throughout his career. When the Anthrax letters were sent, he was initially, they were like, what about this guy? And he was dismissed as this like bumbling weird dude. But then he goes to the FBI and he's like asking questions like, let me help. I want to help with the investigation. But they were investigating him. Like just these crazy history, right? And so when you look at someone, it's called the critical pathway. Doctors Eric Shaw and Laura Sellers wrote this back in 2015. But basically you have personal predispositions. So whatever his were, we all have them. Narcissism, by the way, is like highest risk for insider threat. So personal predispositions doesn't mean you're a bad guy yet. But then you add in stressors, personal, professional, external, financial, right? Business, maybe you're not getting promoted, maybe you got a divorce, all those things. When you compound the predispositions with the stressors, that's when you start to see someone's pattern of behavior change, those red flags, right? Yeah. And that Bruce Ivans, same, red flag, red flag, red flag. And nobody caught on to it. He even had therapists, psychiatrists, try to report him to the army for having all kinds of issues, and they were ignored, right? Yeah. So if no one intervenes, if there's no investigation, if there's no intervention of any kind, that person is essentially allowed to walk down that critical pathway until they conduct a malicious act, which is what he did.
Yeah. No, it's I haven't critical pathway.
Critical pathway.
That's interesting.
Sean Sellers.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. There was a documentary on Netflix I watched a few months ago that was on Bruce Ivans and the Anthrax thing, and I was thinking about getting someone in here for that because that's like a forgotten little.
Yeah, but it was such an interesting case.
Yeah. And there's still some, as much as he clearly was a weird guy, there's still some question like, was it him or wasn't it? Like he was a weirdo, but like there's an open door there, if you will.
But he was like taking the anthrax sample, like read the book. If anyone's bored, read the book. It's so good.
I gotta check that
Mirage
out.
Man.
Personally, it seemed to me like he did it. That was just
I'd agree.
Thought, right? Yeah. But I had gotten into this because we were talking about how fucked up Syria was in the southern part of it and how open that is. And you had mentioned earlier, this is something that has come up on several podcasts I've done at this point, but I always like to talk about it. You had mentioned you spent some time with the Peshmerga, the Kurds. Mm-hmm. They're so fascinating to me. People have heard me say this before on podcasts, but I'll never stop saying it. It's a group of like 35 million people or something like that.
The Kurds.
Don't have a country.
Yeah.
But they do. Because like if we go to a map.
Kurdistan.
They don't. But they have Kurdistan where essentially northern Iraq, southern Syria, and that
Turkey,
whole carve of land.
Yeah.
The Peshmerga runs and it's like they don't, as far as I know, they don't even pay taxes to Syria or Iraq or whatever.
They have their own intelligence unit too, the Asaish.
Yeah. So what the hell is going on there?
All I know is like when I was in Mosul and I had source meetings or we were doing area familiarization up in Kurdistan, there was a line, an invisible line. And when we crossed it, everyone went, oh, okay. Yeah. This is funny. So I did a lot of work up in Kurdistan and I had a lot of sources there. And I mean, I could tell you a lot of stories. But my second tour, when I landed in Mosul, I found out that they weren't doing anything in Kurdistan, that the people that were in my office at the time. And I was like, why? And they're like, oh, we don't know it. And I was like, I will take everyone on a trip. I'm going to teach you all about lay of the land, where you can meet, everything. So we went up and we did this mission where everyone went up and we explored. We went to like the Dahuk Zoo and stuff like that, which is very depressing.
Why is a zoo depressing?
Oh my God, it was the most depressing.
Because they're like locked in really tight?
It's like abused, abandoned animals like monkeys with cigarettes. You know what I mean? Like they've got like a dog with like a lot of hair and they say it's a lion. Like you're just like, these poor animals.
I feel bad for the animals, but that's kind of funny. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think the snake was dead. So we drive up, we pass the last checkpoint for Mosul, and we're now into Kurdistan, and there's like a big thing over the road, you know, with the Kurdish flag and blah, blah, blah. And we drive in, and we were in less than 5 minutes, just driving north, And my interpreter gets a phone call. And he looks at me like, oh my God. And he just kind of stares at me. And I was like, what? What is it? And he goes, they know you're here. They want you to come meet them. So the Kurds have intel tight at every checkpoint. They have all kinds of plainclothes people that are reporting back. So as soon as this, non-blending in redhead chick drives through, they knew who I was. And then they called the people that I used to meet with, who called my interpreter and said, hey, come say hi.
Whoa.
Within less than 5 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I'll hear a lot of special forces guys talk about the Peshmerga, like,
They're good.
and they're not. These guys aren't just going to say, like, they'll tell you if someone sucks. They're like, dude, no, we'll be in a foxhole with them any day.
Oh, absolutely. That's the Kurdish flag, by the way.
Yeah.
Shana b'Shana, shoulder to shoulder. I created a coin even for them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, look at where it is. Yeah. It's like, so that east. I had it wrong on the Syrian map, people. I'm sorry. I always think of this wrong in my head. But you can see I had it right with Iraq. Like, they have that whole north area of Iraq. They got the east part of Syria. And geographically, there's all kinds of, like, ranging mountains and prairies there, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then they go all the way up. And this is why, like, Turkey has a problem, right? Because they're on their territory at some point.
And there's different factions of the Kurds, too. So there's more militarized factions and nicer, more gentler factions and things like that. So that the people in Turkey are dealing with kind of a more militarized faction, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole region, I don't know. It is very interesting, especially like, you can see they go into Iran. When I was there that second time, there were a couple hikers. I think there were 2, maybe 3 idiots, hikers who were hiking through Kurdistan and hiked into Iran.
Oh, no.
Right there. And then obviously got captured.
But it's Kurdistan that's in Iran.
Yeah, like Kurdistan, as you see, like
Meaning
goes
they're okay
over.
when you're on Kurdistan.
Yeah, they just
That's
walk.
so strange.
But like you said, it's like mountainous and
So that's why the security doesn't come up and, like,
it's beautiful.
fuck
though.
people up.
Yeah.
You would just never think, like, Iran would let that happen.
No.
But
Just
that's
walk
crazy.
right in.
My friend Eric Zolliger, who was on episodes 163 and 164, he claims he's not a spy, but I don't know about that. But he was on a train in Turkey, going through Turkey, and his whole thing is he's lived in all these unrecognized territories. Like, he at one point got on a jet ski with a random dude and became the ambassador from Liberland to Somaliland. Oh. Which, yeah, I mean, again.
That makes sense.
Definitely a spy. But, like, he was on a train through Turkey, and he got banned from Turkey for life because when they went to take his ticket, they asked him where he was from, and he said, Kurdistan.
Oh, no.
And they're like, sir, come with us.
Get off.
They're like, that's not the country.
Wrong answer.
He's like, wait, but I was just there. And they're like, you can't come here again.
Oh.
He's like, banned.
That's
and I'm like,
sad.
I feel like there's more there.
Yeah, probably a little bit.
I feel like they had some info on you or something.
Probably
Like,
a little bit.
I don't know about this guy.
Oh, that's funny.
But it's just so strange that something like that today exists because there's no groups that large around the world who don't have a country. There's no groups of like 35 million people
That's a good point.
who don't have a country.
Yeah.
But they do.
Yeah. In a way.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got their own flag. They've got their own
Yeah.
boundaries marked out. You know when you're entering Kurdistan.
Why does the U.S. not... I mean, we're supposed to be like the big swinging dick. We use them as an asset in fucking everything we do.
We absolutely, yeah.
So why doesn't... What's the whole holdup with going to the UN? Like, all right, come on.
I don't know. I'm sure that's probably low on the priority list for what we're dealing with.
But I would think I'm not going to say it's at the top of the list, but I would think it's not at the lowest because, again, these people are being used in active military.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, throw them a bone.
I know. And there's so much history there, too.
Yeah. I got to get a Kurdistan historian in here.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
you
something
totally
I've been
should.
meaning to do.
You totally should.
Alessia, we got to remind me, we got to scout some people on that.
Yeah.
I haven't done that. But anyway, so you were in Mosul 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And then any other cool sources in Mosul in 2009?
Yes,
All
I'm
right,
sure. No, I don't know. No,
go.
you can move on.
No. I need one or two.
Okay. Do you know who Mohammed? Let me see if I remember his name right. Mohammed, is it Izzat al-Dorey? Can you Google the playing cards I think he was the aces. No. He was one of the top playing cards. Remember when we issued those playing cards in the war for people that we wanted to capture?
Yes.
Like Saddam Hussein was ace of spades or
Yes.
whatever. Dorey was one of them.
Okay. So
There-
Muhammad Hamza Zerbrandi.
No, not him. We want Dorey.
Is there a way we can do all Muhammad the playing cards Iraq? Duri D-U-R-I?
D-U-R-I, yeah.
All right, let's try this. Oh, wait, there's a picture of all the ones. See the fifth one?
This one right here.
Well, actually, stay on this. Can we see that?
I feel really old.
Let's
I can't
zoom
see.
that. No, that's really small. Don't worry about it.
Well, so as you look for him, I had a source who was not recruited, who had him, who knew him. He was one of the top.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Antiquity.
Qusay Saddam Hussein,
Oh,
that's
there.
his son. Muhammad
It's all the way to
says-
the left.
That
Is that
one?
it?
Is that Ibrahim
Al-Duri,
Al-Duri?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So king
him.
of clubs.
So him. So I had a source who knew him, had him, talked to him regularly, and we were trying to capture him. Actually, I've never told this story. And I tried to get permission to like pass it to the special forces guys that we were working with to see if they could go, but he was in Syria. They were like, nope, we can't. And DIA just kept shutting it down. I was like, but look, like requirement, like playing card, like big deal. And I just got shot down. And I ended up just very quietly passing it over to another unit to see if they could just action it themselves because DIA wouldn't do it. So that was kind of a bummer.
Did they action it themselves?
I don't know. I don't know.
What was his role again? RCC vice chairman? What's the RCC?
I don't know.
I'm going to guess that's Republic of something, but I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't remember. I just
see
remember he was.
SSO and RCC.
Yeah, that was kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it says like Kamal Mustafa Abdallah Sultan Al Trinity. It says Secretary of the Republican Guard and Special Republican Guard. So I wonder if that. I mean, he looks serious. He's wearing a beret.
Oh yeah, I mean berets make everybody more
Yeah, more
tough
badass,
and yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
It's got to be frustrating though when
It
you have
was
a
super.
fish right on the hook and they say throw it back.
it was super frustrating. Yeah, and I even tried to get permission to like pass it to agency and like all the and I don't know what was going on back home, but people were like, nope. It was like a hard no. So here you go. Someone else, please go take it.
I wonder if maybe that guy was a source, double agent.
I don't know. Do you know? I will never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you? I mean, because you're there when we're knocking out all the former regime and everything. But was there ever thought in your head like, yeah, we're taking out bad guys for sure. No one's arguing that. Saddam was a bad guy. These guys are bad dudes. But like the people who are going to replace them are as bad and might be even worse.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the saying, like you cut off the head of the serpent and a bunch more grow back.
Yep.
Absolutely.
It's got to be frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. There's a lot in intel in general. A lot of it is very frustrating, especially like I said, like you throw on the layer of politics and you throw like there's just so many moving pieces that you have no control over.
Yes.
That for a type A person, it's very frustrating.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I got to think that during this era, you're there when the experiment is going the wrong way, right? The insurgency, as we've highlighted all day today, is growing into what will become ISIS. I guess you got out right when ISIS was popping off, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So, also we're going to get to Afghanistan in a minute. Afghanistan, it's like, I talk about this all the time with people on the podcast. It's like unbelievable military operation for the first year and a half. Then we went to Iraq, to borrow Obama's line. I think he said this very well. Took our eye off the ball there.
Yes.
We see how that ends up and everything because you start fighting 1.5 wars in a way, if you really want to say it, with the resources. But it's like, you're knocking people out at a time where shit is getting way worse. And the United States is there to quote unquote spread democracy. And this is where my question is. I've had other people in here, Andrew Bustamante comes to mind, talking about this with the the idea where they talk about the idea of like how spreading democracy in certain places doesn't work. But the alternative is you have some sort of totalitarian rule, which in America, we don't like hearing that or whatever. But do you think that, you know, maybe with like collegiate culture, there's a reality that some countries, they just are going to turn to that? And so maybe it's better to have the strong man with an arm that's not holding a machine gun versus, you know, the one that is.
Yeah.
And it's the best of two evils.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, right? You could come up with any analogy. Dating, right? There are going to be people that are not going to be a good fit. They're not going to like you, right? It's the same thing. Like we value democracy. That's not going to be a good fit everywhere. It's just not. So sometimes the lesser of two evils is what we have to go with.
Yeah.
That's your point.
Yeah, I mean, you hear guys talk about like being there for the first election in Iraq and how, you know, people were like holding, I think it was like the pink sticker or whatever. And they were so excited for it. So it's not like there's not an appetite for that among some people, but there's just factions that'll turn to,
It's
you
politics.
know what, this is what we know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at any country that looks like it's on the verge of revolution, or look at the Arab Spring.
Yeah.
Right? Look at Iran. Look what's been going on there. How you've got these populations, probably North Korea and China too. Like you've got these populations, especially of the younger generation, who know or suspect what's out in the world, right? Maybe they have social media locked down. Maybe they don't have free access to internet, et cetera. But information gets there somehow. And you can see that they have an appetite for change, but it hasn't happened yet in any of these places, right? They've tried, but I think culturally sometimes, I don't know, you're just fighting history, generations of history.
That's a good way to put it.
Right?
That's a really good way to put it. Because it's like in America, our history is like 250 years.
I know. Ours is like this big.
We're missing a zero
Yeah.
on the end, or like two zeros.
Couple, yeah.
With some of these places. And it's like, oh, you're just going to go in and change it. It's not just ingrained in culture. It's almost, you know, scientists are going to yell at me for saying this because this isn't technically true. But in a way, it's literally like in the DNA. In some ways, it's just that's what's known.
It's a lot of it also learned behavior. Like if that's all you see, just like those poor kids I was talking about.
Yep.
If that's all you see and all you know, that's your culture. That's what your normal is. And if someone comes in and says, change it, it's just like going into a company, right? I go into a company and I'm like, okay, we need to change this, this, and this. Yep. It's not that easy. You have a culture to deal with, no matter who you're talking. If it's a country or a company, it's the same thing. You have a culture. My family, we have our own little culture, right? Our own traditions. It's all the same thing, just on a much bigger scale.
Right. You talked about those kids. You gave that visual 20, 30 minutes ago. The kids that would
line up,
walk by and you're like, all they know is war.
Yeah.
Again, not to empathize with the terrorists or something, but to understand, like, isn't it easy to see how some of these kids, you know, their whole childhood is filled with U.S. Armed Forces knocking down their door and checking everyone? Isn't it easy to see how they turn to terrorism?
Yeah. I mean, hearts and minds is a real thing.
Yep.
There's a reason you want to win hearts and minds. We could do better. Again, we could do better.
What do you think held us back from doing that?
Politics, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you have a pot of money and you need to put it, you've got a war, 2 wars, are you going to put your pot of money in hearts and minds, or are you going to put it in trying to kill the bad guys and try to get the war over with faster? When you look at the priorities, it's just not high on the priority list. Should it be? Yes, absolutely. But how do you go about doing that, right? And not be just a cost center.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard to prove the ROI of something like that. Hey, we're gonna be cool to these kids and they're not gonna blow us up when they grow up. How do you prove that?
Yep.
You know, but I actually had a source meeting. This is fast forwarding to Afghanistan.
2011?
Yeah. I had this source meeting with somebody pretty well known, and they had children. And one of their children was a teenager. And this kid came in and we were chatting, just bullshitting. And I will never forget, she was telling a story about she was going somewhere. And she said, in like her best Valley Girl accent, I don't know how she got a Valley Girl accent, but she was like, oh my God. And then there was a rocket attack. And I was like, not today. But the way she said it was so like nonchalant. It was her norm.
Yeah.
And it just hit me so hard,
Yeah.
you know? It's just so annoying. Like
Another rocket attack.
right? And
That
for me,
is
I'm like,
wild.
right. I'm like, I can't sleep when there's a rocket attack and you're just annoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all she knew.
Well, that's the thing. That's the environment you grow up in. It becomes a norm. Death becomes something that's more, I mean, I hate to say it like this. It's more of a commodity around you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a horrible way to put it. But, you know, like us, that's a luxury we have. We get to live in the luxury of like someone dies from something tragic. It's the worst thing ever. And statistically, it's happening. Something tragic
Right.
is happening as a normal thing.
Right.
Every
Constantly.
day in places like that.
Yeah. I feel like for me, like the hearts and minds thing is really big. Every deployment that I had, I would find a local orphanage. Mm-hmm. And, well, maybe I had secretly tried to adopt a kid. That never worked. In Afghanistan, I had a source, a really high-ranking somebody say, like, I can get you a kid if you want. I was like, no, not illegally. I'm good. But I would always find an orphanage, and then I would have people from home send, I would ask them what they needed, and we would send like vans full of stuff to them. And then when I worked with sources, when I had the opportunity to spend time with their families, excuse me, I spent as much time as I could with those kids and with those families. And if I could leave an imprint, a positive imprint somehow of what being an American or working with Americans was, I really tried to do that. So there's the mission, right? And I wanted to debrief the person and teach them tradecraft and do whatever I needed to do for that op. But on the same hand, like I just loved spending time with their families and their kids. There was one gentleman who he had a bunch of kids, and he kept, every time I met with him, he would say like they loved art and they just really loved art, but they didn't have money and blah blah blah. And he just he wasn't asking for anything, he was just in conversation. And so one time I ordered a whole bunch of art supplies from Amazon, had it delivered, and in one meeting I gave him a ton of art supplies. And it wasn't anything that was gonna like ID him or what, like the way I did it was smart. People can be quiet, and I wasn't gonna kill him. Anyway, so I gave him these 2 boxes of like art supplies, but again, local art supplies. It wasn't from America. Anyway, he cried, which made me cry, because he was so excited how his kids were gonna like receive it. And then the next time he came, he brought, and I still have it, he brought me, they had made me a book of art that they drew for me with all the art supplies that I had given them. And it's like one of my most treasured things, because it's those memories and touching those people, those little people who are now big people, right? That I just hoped that I could influence somehow.
It comes across when I was talking to you off camera before doing this, and in talking to you today, I don't say this as a shot to other spies I've had in here or whatever, but like it's a dangerous job, and there's highest stakes, and there's things to be done, and that involves manipulation, coercion, all this stuff. It's not to say you didn't still have to do some of that in your job. I get that. But like, it's very clear to me that you have the gene of like genuinely gives a fuck.
Yeah.
And that's not really like, and I'll put it like Andrew Bustamante, who's a friend of mine and, you know, says he's former CIA. Andy's there to do the job.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Andy doesn't feel it if like some kids die and stuff, but Andy is very much like, the world's a shitty place. You seem to be much more of in your role of an empath and feeling everything that happens around you. And I would imagine that just like he has skills that played well for him to be able to get people into his orbit, it's very clear these skills played well to people. They wanted you around. They wanted you like a member of the family in some of these cases.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Without a doubt. Yeah. And you mentioned empathy. Empathy and respect are 2 of the keys to building trust, right? If you feel trust, your brain is releasing oxytocin, that feel-good chemical, right?
Yeah.
So if I can tap into that and make you trust me genuinely, like I'm not going to, screw you over, but if I can make you and your family trust me, we're building that rapport, we're building that trust, we're building that friendship that much faster. So that relationship will be that much stronger. Yeah. So when I tell you do this or don't do this, you will listen. because I have your best interest at heart and your kids, and they can see it.
It's interesting, like reading your psychology with it all too.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's what I do in my job with anyone who's in here. But it's
Yeah.
doubly fascinating when people were operating at like the highest levels of national security. And it's like, again, juxtaposing you and Andy. Like you talked about, you grew up, you didn't fit in, you didn't have any friends or whatever. You wanted friends though.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you got really good at making friends. Like you were a late bloomer and then it was as a part of your career because you
Yes.
started so young. You made friends with everyone. Andy didn't have many friends, had a really difficult time as a child and everything, had a seminal event that really ended up fucking him over and everything. And then he became the opposite. He's the, fuck that. I don't need friends.
Mm-hmm.
I got my wife. I got my kids.
That's all he needs.
And it's like, honestly, he's got like me and Danny Jones, right? Because like, I guess we understand him in a
Right.
way, but it's interesting to see how you guys did similar jobs in different ways from a similar origin story, but had the opposite reaction to the origin story to do the job in the opposite way.
That's
That's
interesting.
just really...
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know that before I was talking with you, so I'm just like kind of live processing that.
It's like a therapy session.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, do you have a couch I can lay on?
No. I literally don't own a couch, as you can
I
tell.
know. What's with that? Where's your furniture?
Listen, the money goes to him. That's what I do. I got mouths to feed
Right.
here. You know, listen, don't say I don't put it all into my business.
It's true, but like you mentioned it, like I was a very lonely kid. Growing up, I was very, very lonely as well. The job with DIA, I was very lonely. And now I'm a single mom of 3. I'm very lonely. Like I am constantly still very, very lonely. But I think I've just kind of figured out how to embrace it, and I don't want other people to feel that way. So yeah, to your point, like empathy, it's my biggest demise.
Absolutely.
It's going to kill me one day.
Yeah, no, you'll be all right. I think you're hanging around. But you mentioned obviously several times now that it was 2011 when you went into Afghanistan. So you finished the 6 months in Mosul in 2009, 2010. You come back to America as a similar type middle between.
Yep.
I mean, you went to the farm after the first one. This time you're not going to the farm, but you're working the desk in America?
Sort of, yeah. No, this time when I came back, I was operational. So I was doing clandestine operations in other places. So not war zone, like real world type stuff.
Are you allowed to talk about that at all?
Not really.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Fair enough. So you get the assignment to go to Afghanistan. Now, we kind of talked about this broadly, but this is when we're coming up on 10 years in to this war. We're like 9 years in probably when you're going. We still don't have Osama bin Laden. Again, it started off very well, but then took the eye off the ball. And now, like when I've talked to people who were in Afghanistan in the late 2000s going into 2010, 2011, it's like you could start to see the shift happening.
Yep.
Before you went, did you have information that that's where it's going?
Yeah, because I had been working the Afghan desk as well. I had time there. So I could see it from the desk point of view too. But you could also see like priority shifting with requirements and things like that.
Why do you think the Taliban at that point, not 2021, but at that point, was starting to have success, let's say winning over some hearts and minds?
I have a few theories. When I studied counterterrorism, one thing, especially that interested me about Hezbollah, was that they actually had a branch for hearts and minds, right? They built hospitals. They had, they supported their people. So there's a militarized, a political, and then there's like the do-good branch. Afghan history is so different, right? And the groups are so different. But I think there was a bit of that as well. I don't know. Because the people that I worked with, the sources I met, even the locals that worked, at our house where we were, like everyone was like staunchly opposed and really afraid.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's that. I don't know if maybe it's, again, that, like I mentioned before, that fear, you you fall in line because you're just trying to preserve yourself, your livelihood, your family.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of people act out of fear in ways that they normally wouldn't, just for self-preservation.
Yeah. Now, when you were assigned to go there again for DIA's purposes, I'd imagine the main mission was for the protection of the assets, our military on the ground, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So similar kind of thing to Iraq, as far as like, oh, where are the IEDs? Where's Taliban headquartered? Where do we got to stay away from? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. There was a little bit of strategic as well.
What do you mean?
So the Afghan government was newly formed. There were a lot of big personalities, former warlords like General Dostum, for example.
Yeah.
Just people and players that we're still trying to figure out. What's their motivation? What's their end goal? Who are they in with? So that kind of intel was also very helpful.
Okay. Had you had any involvement or look through or anything in the years before you were in Afghanistan? Had you had any involvement in the Osama bin Laden investigation?
No.
How did you get involved?
Luck. So there was a walk. I think he was a walk-in, actually, that a friend of mine had met with. I think he met with him once or twice. And I remember my friend was leaving. He was with a different unit, but he was DIA. And he said, this guy can talk. He talks so much. And I was like, yeah, all right, yeah, okay. And he's like, but he claims that he knows where Osama is. Like, I can't get anything out of him. Like, we just sit there for hours and I don't know what he's saying. Like, he's just talking. Okay. So I had the first meeting. First meeting, I was like, oh my God, this guy talks so much. Like, please stop talking.
Who do you say he was?
So with this story, some people have heard the story and they think I'm burning my source, but I change things.
Okay.
So he was very close with Osama. He had known him forever, like just, I don't know, they had been friends forever. He was kind of his right hand for a while. He knew about the attacks of September 11th before they happened, which, if you step back, the attacks on September 11th were pivotal for my career. I was actually, side note, I was working at Stanford University at the time, and I was driving to work, listening to the radio when the planes hit the towers, and I remember them breaking in and explaining, and I remember them saying bodies are falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
Right? Visceral memory.
1 mile away from here.
Right. When I got to work, I quit and I applied to grad school because I was angry at myself because I knew I wanted to do it and I was killing time. I wasn't actually fighting the good fight. I wasn't helping our country. And I was really angry at myself. Like, it was a personal failure. So when he brought up September 11th, and we talked about it, and we talked about his history, we talked about everything. It was very difficult for me, especially initially. Like, you're sitting across the table from someone who you hate, right? I hated everything that he stood for. I hated everything that he knew about. It was really, really difficult. But I'm not going to recruit someone if I hate them, right? You can tell when someone doesn't like you.
Oh, yeah.
And I was really frustrated because he did talk way too much. But over the course of months, and literally our meetings were like 9 hours. They were these marathon meetings. They were exhausting.
What would he talk about?
Oh my God. He just blathered on and on. He was okay. He was a very nice person. His motivations had changed, right? He was pro Al-Qaeda. He had things happen in his life where his motivations changed. He saw the light after September 11th. He was like, oh my God, what are we doing? He had family influence that was like, what are you doing? This is not okay. And he just kind of stepped back and realized, yeah, I might want Sharia. I might want all this stuff, but this is not the way to do it. Okay? So it took me a long time to just see him as a person now, not as his past, and try to try to respect him and try to have empathy and try to empathize with him and his situation and be in his shoes in his life that day, if that makes sense.
This is a guy who, I'm just using the example you just gave, who, wanted stuff like Sharia law, and he's talking to an American woman case officer, probably not wearing a hijab.
Yes. No, wasn't. Nope.
Interesting.
And we talked about that. There was one point because it was like eating me up. Why? Like he talked to my friend. My friend was a dude.
Yeah.
And I straight up asked him, why are you talking to me? I am a white Western woman. I am the antithesis of everything that you believe in. I straight up asked him. Yeah. And of course, there's an interpreter. So he would talk for 4 hours. The poor interpreter's like, wait, I need to.
No English.
No English. No. And my interpreter and him were from very different parts of the world. This comes in later.
Okay.
So I asked him, and he kind of just sat back. I'll do this. He just sat back, and he kind of got this little smirk and went, why not? And I was like, okay. Right? But we ended up building a really good rapport. Now, remember, I didn't have kids at the time. I had really wanted kids. He had 5,000 kids.
5,000?
He had a lot of kids. He had a lot of kids.
Like what kind of number are we actually talking?
I don't know, probably in the dozens. He had a lot of kids.
He was busy.
He had a lot. Yeah, he was very
busy.
Poor
lady.
Yeah, or ladies.
Ladies, yeah. Doing that over there.
Yeah. He was probably exhausted. That's why he looks so tired all the time. Yeah. So it really, this operation pushed me outside of my comfort zone more than any other. Because I had worked with terrorists before, but this was different to me, right? And so I just spent a lot of time getting to know him, getting in his head, understanding the motivations, his vulnerabilities, his suitability, all of that. Just listening. He just wanted to be listened to in large. A lot of people, when you get them talking, they just want to talk, right? Yep. This is what you do for a living. So remember we had talked about money, and at the end of every meeting I had a little envelope, and I would slide the envelope over and thank you so much.
Pay that to your 7,000 kids.
I know.
There you go. There's your child
support. Thank you so much. You're going to have to feed a lot of people. And he would always very graciously push it back and say, no, thank you. I don't want your money. Oh. And every time I was like, damn it, because I can't recruit him if he's not taking money.
Right, you were saying.
So I checked all the other boxes, but that. And it was killing me. It was killing me. And I was brainstorming with people, and we could not come up with a solution. I tried everything I could think of. And finally, it just hit me. So I had gone, side note, there's a world famous, evidently, maybe it's a Kabul famous palm reader. He's probably gone. He was very, very old. He's probably dead by now. He was very old. But one of my sources had taken me and a couple of people from my team to go meet this palm reader. And this palm reader, when I sit down, I give him my palm, and he has a ruler, and he's measuring, and he goes, you will have 12 kids. And I was like, what? We got to go. So that was kind of a running joke with my team and I. And I had told this guy about the palm reader and that I was going to have 12 kids. And we started bonding over kids, that I wanted kids and that he had a bunch. And I realized this guy is a religious scholar, right? Education is super important to him. Yeah. And he has all these kids. And so the next meeting, we did the meeting, and I had my envelope, and I started to slide it over, and I stopped. When he went to like touch it to push it back, I kind of stopped him, and I was like, stop, don't touch it. And he looked at me, and I said, look, after this meeting, I want you to go down to the local bank, and I want you to open a bank account in your eldest son's name. Cultural thing, right? Open it in his name, and I want you to put this money in that bank account, but you are not allowed to touch it. This money is for your kids. And every time we meet, I'm going to give you money for your kids' college education. Oh. Not for you.
Oh, he took it.
He took it. And I recruited him the next meeting.
So when you say, this is where I get a little confused with the gray area, because you're having all these meetings with him. He's spilling for 9 hours. Maybe 3 of it is actually important. 6 of it is whatever.
Yes.
TMZ for Afghanistan.
Right.
But, isn't that, he
the
already
intel?
kind of is recruited.
So I can't task him if he's not recruited.
Okay.
So he knows where Osama is. I can't say, go take pictures.
Understood.
Or tell me the house number, or I can't task him.
What? Was it the first meeting that he told you, I know where he is?
No.
Do you
had kind
remember
of
that moment
danced
he
around.
did?
No. And, a lot of people say stuff like that, and you're like, all right, buddy. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, is he in the room with us right now?
Right. So when people said stuff like that, you're like, okay, we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of like, we'll table that. Sure. But he had to volunteer stuff. So it was like he had to know what I wanted to ask. So I could guide, you know, here are the requirements. Sure. Do you know anything about this? No. Well, it'd be great if you did. You know? I'm not tasking. But next time, if you do, that would be super helpful.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a fine balance, but there are benefits to being recruited too. Plus, I could teach him tradecraft to protect himself from when he's sneaking around. That. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said you would dance around it and stuff. What months is this, by the way? Is this like January, February, March kind of deal?
Yeah, let me think back. Yeah. So 6 months, and I came home.
When did you get there? January 2011?
I want to say February. It might have been February or March when I left. When I got there. So yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So you're there when we get them on May 1. All right, so
yeah, I was there, and I just had meetings with him, where he was telling me, yeah, he's here. He's in Abbottabad.
When did he say Abbottabad for the first time? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was probably 3 or 4 meetings before they caught Osama.
How often were these meetings with him?
Weekly.
He just gets away for like 9 hours.
Yeah.
No one asks any questions.
Yeah, and I can't tell you why, but he had very good cover for doing it.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And he didn't live there. He lived somewhere else.
So when you first realized, whatever meeting it was, how close he was in proximity to Osama, we hear that everyone's seen Zero Dark 30, which composites a lot of characters, to be honest. But there were different people working on this at all the different agencies, and then there were like 3 women, I think, who were at CIA, who had been all over it for years, who ended up, you know, being there with the Navy SEALs and getting it done. But like, where did you take that information, and how much up the chain of command of that investigation did you get read in on? None.
So everything in Intel is very compartmentalized, which is very handy for your own brain. So nothing. Everyone just had the requirements, and anyone that got information, we would put it in our intelligence report and feed it into the ether and hope to God somebody who needed it read it. Really. So analysts would give you feedback. So analysts who are tracking, obviously they say Osama, like they're pulling in the reports that are relevant, but they would grade you. So they would say, okay, this report is a B. We don't really believe your source. Maybe could you ask him this and this? Or you get an A, and A was always really good. It's like literally like getting an A. You're like, yes, I got an A. It means it was good intel. They used it. Sometimes they would tell you where they used it. Went to the Presidential Daily Brief, things like that. But the problem was with this guy is that, and again, remember I told you biggest success and biggest failure at the same time. Because my interpreter and him were from totally different regions of the world, their language and their slang and their tone and their everything was different. So when this guy, I heard Abbottabad. I wrote down Abbottabad with quite like 3 question marks. Abbottabad. I had never heard of it before, right? My interpreter was like, I don't know what he's saying. And by the way, this guy mumbled. He was a big mumbler. He would talk forever and mumble, and you couldn't understand the mumbles a lot of times. He was like, he's mumbling again. I can't understand him. And I was like, but I heard Abbottabad. And we'd clarify, like we'd ask clarifying questions. We did map tracking. We asked for pictures, like everything you're supposed to do. But nobody believed us. They kept saying he was making it up. The feedback I got is he's making it up. And so I worked with NGA, National Geospatial Agency. We had an NSA person embedded. We took it to CIA. I shopped it around trying to get someone to like, is there an analyst that can give me questions for him that you want to know? Like, are we on the right track? Like, and people, it was almost like half disbelief and then just miscommunication. We don't know what he's saying.
God,
it was crazy. So frustrating. And so I woke up one morning and turn on the news as I'm getting dressed, and there it is, like, we captured Osama bin Laden, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, in Abbottabad. He was in Abbottabad. Like, literally exactly how I'd spelled it in my notes. And I had a meeting with that guy. It was like a day or 2 later. And he came in and he was like ear to ear. He was like grinning and he goes, we got him. We got him. See, I told you. And I was like, yes, you did. You did.
So you putting that report, even though you're not getting looked through and whatever, you putting in that report in maybe March, something like that, you're one of the people that then it zeroes in like, oh shit, we got this from multiple angles that he's there.
Yeah, so those analysts are compiling, and if they're having multiple source reporting, he's got to be there.
Yeah, so you're like one of the 4.
So I'm sure it contributed, but I got 0 feedback and 0. So in my head, I'm like, I failed. It wasn't me.
Well, it worked.
Whatever happened worked, and kudos to the teams that got him.
What was the... Again, I'm not going off Zero Dark 30. I'm trying to go off of some of the other stuff where I've seen people around it who were interviewed on it. Who was the guy that they got to? His courier? Was that it?
The courier.
Yeah. What was that? What was the story there again? Do you remember that?
I think they arrested. Isn't he still in Gitmo?
Probably. But they were like tracking him, or they were able to follow him there.
They had to have multiple avenues to get this guy. So you're having multiple sources reporting. There was also the vaccination thing, if you heard about.
What was that?
Where they had somebody offering free vaccinations in the area
for the kids.
And they could test like DNA and stuff. Oh. There's all kinds of cool stuff. And then like my dude was like taking pictures of it. I mean, we had photos.
Oh, wait. Okay, hold on a minute. You sent him to Abbottabad?
No, he went. This is before he was recruited. He went.
And he took pictures? And he brought that into the meeting?
And he brought that in. He had pictures along the drive. He's like, and here's an overpass. Here's this tree. Turn right at the tree.
So you saw the building that he ended up, you had the whole thing?
I didn't have the house. I had pictures of the area and getting there. He was showing us where to go.
Was he... like hidden camera kind of stuff, or
no,
was he
they're
straight
so
up
blatant.
like
blatant.
a tourist?
They all have those little like Nokia.
Yeah, so he's like, oh,
yeah,
just chilling like he's a tourist.
And yes, and there are pictures where he's standing, and someone took his picture, but he did it. He's like, oh, I had someone take my picture, or like
with this in the background, like, yeah, get a little to the left, please.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can you see the building?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Now, was he meeting with Osama?
No. He had already had a falling out, so he wasn't tight with him anymore.
Are you able to say why they fell out?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I kind of figured. But it's someone who knew him for a very long time.
Knew him very well for a very long time.
What did he say about Osama? Like what? Obviously, you said after 9/11, he was like, wait, this isn't the way.
Yeah.
But what did he say about him as a guy? Like, why were they, other than believing in maybe Sharia and stuff like that, like what made him so magnetic?
I never asked. But it was interesting talking to him because it was like someone he revered and respected, but also didn't agree with anymore. So you could see conflict, like internal conflict. I don't know how to describe it. But because of that conflict, I never went deep in that because I didn't want to upset him. Also, I was still very, very cautious, the male-female relationship. Right. And for him, especially being a religious scholar, like that's a big no-no, right? So I was really careful what I asked him and how I asked him things. I didn't ever want to offend him,
Wait, actually, I'm a little confused on that. I can understand, like, some of the personal questions and things like that because of the male-female relationship, but what makes a difference between you or a dude sitting in your seat asking a question about his relationship with Osama?
Yeah, I just didn't feel like it was right. For example, like, because he was a mullah, and I am not a Muslim, like, I gave him as a gift this beautiful, beautiful Quran. It had like hand-painted artwork in it and stuff like that. I couldn't touch it. So when we bought it, my interpreter bought it, we wrapped it up. And so when I gave it to him, I was like, this gift is for me, but I know I can't touch it as a non-believer or whatever. Yeah. So here, so-and-so is going to hand that to you. And he appreciated that. So there was just like religious and culturally, I just felt like I had to walk a really careful line.
Sure.
He might have been happy to give me intel, but that doesn't mean he was happy to like really let me get in on his head and some of that stuff. So I was just very, very cautious.
Well, you were saying that before you got to Afghanistan and this guy became a source, you hadn't been involved in the Osama bin Laden investigation. But had you... I mean, he was the ghost for almost a especially almost a decade there, longer than that technically, but at least since 9/11, almost a decade. And it's like the most wanted man in the world. Had you studied up on him or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, remember I got my master's in counterterrorism.
Right. So, but you did a lot of focus on him specifically and his whole history and everything.
Yeah. In fact, when I was, how old was I? 18 or 19, I sailed around the world on a small cruise ship called Semester at Sea when I was in college.
Yeah.
It's called the Semester of Sex.
Yes.
It was awesome.
I wasn't going to say
Not for me. I didn't have sex.
Yeah. Okay.
I just thought about it. But yeah, so going on that even, one of our stops was Kenya. And right before that is when the embassies in Kenya and Tanzania were bombed.
Yes.
And I don't remember this at all, but my friend reminded me. So I was I was always fascinated by terrorism and why. Why are people doing this? And when September 11th happened, my friend Susie, she lives in New York, Susie either emailed me or texted me or something, and she said, you were right. And I was like, what was I right about? And she said, Osama bin Laden. When we were in Kenya, because we went and we saw the embassy, it was all blown, like the stuff, like paid your respects, we saw it. She goes, you told me all about Osama bin Laden, and you told me they were going to hit us in the home. Like you told me. And I was like, oh shit, I did?
You said that in like 98, 99.
Oh, wow, I'm good. I mean, I didn't say they were going to fly a plane in the World Trade Center, but I was telling her that, if anyone could do it, they would attack here in the U.S. And she was like, you were totally right. And for me, like, because I didn't remember it, it was validating. It was like, okay, I am good at this. It just kind of egged me on to keep doing it.
Yeah. I mean, the whole history, he's one of like 57 kids or something.
Yeah.
And Mohammed bin Laden, his father, fascinating, a lot of money, but fascinating guy, espionage-wise.
Right.
Like, I don't know that he was like a full-blown spy or something, but he was an asset for probably a lot of different places. Mm-hmm. He
had good access.
Yeah.
He had a lot of good access.
Oh, my God. It's just very strange where Osama came from and then obviously the Mujahideen in the 80s shaped
big
him.
influence.
Yeah, that's huge, but like the family he came from, you wouldn't expect that.
No,
because he had access to a lot of wealth.
And you would think you'd grow up wanting for nothing.
Yeah.
What would his grievances be?
Yeah.
It's like a American rich kid. Like, what's wrong with you? You have everything you want.
Yeah.
I
mean, you look at it's interesting. You were telling your friends in 98, 99 about this guy and what he was going to do. When you look at the history of it, and as the people who were there discuss it, they're always talking about how it took a while for the Clinton administration to get it, but then they got it, right? Like they when those bombings were happening, they're like, oh, okay, all right,
real.
This guy's a problem.
Yeah.
And then you have a whole new administration come in, and they're like, what's this? But
that happens every 4 years for
Yeah.
everything. Like, pick a topic. Russia, Ukraine, China. Like, it's the same cycle. And the intelligence community feels it, You're supposed to be impartial, and you are. But, man, those politics, the pressure to produce on whatever their priority is palpable, no matter where you are. It absolutely impacts missions.
The other side of it, though, not that I like politicians, because I don't at all, but, it's two to tango in this kind of relationship, and this gets talked about a lot. I'd love your thoughts on this. You have the politicians who are there to get elected. Well, let's separate them in two categories for a second. You have the House of Representatives and the Senates who, they don't have any fucking term limits, so they can be like 90 with their teeth falling out and still be there. But they still have to at least do things on the basis of trying to get elected on some upcoming Tuesday in November, which causes problems. Then in the executive branch, where the intelligence community has daily direct back and forth, this is where decisions are being made. Every 4 years, or at the very least every 8 years, an entire new administration comes in, entire new ideas, whatever. And there's the old thought that, the espionage community is the most powerful tool there is because they have dirt on everyone. And the guy who comes in there, the new president, the people who go and give him the first PDB,
Yep.
They were there before he got there. They're going to be there after he leaves.
Right.
So the question is, who really does run the country? And I just look at it as like a psychological experiment of well, what do you expect? These people got to exist. and they know they're going to exist after this guy's there. So that's just
But they've got to play the game.
yeah, they play the game, but like they have their hands on all the triggers.
Yeah.
The president doesn't have anything without the intelligence from those people. So effectively, if they don't like a guy, or in the future, if there's a woman in there, if they don't like her, don't like him, you know, they can be like, oh, well, we're not going to tell them about this thing. We're going to steer clear of that.
I'm sure stuff gets communicated different ways or different channels. Yeah. But I think anybody who's doing that job, they're mission oriented too, and they want to do the right thing. But it's funny, like you talk about like the PDB, when each president comes in, they have to adjust how they brief it. One president wants only visuals. One president wants metrics. One president wants paragraph summaries. One president doesn't want anything. He just wants you to tell me what's important. So you're adjusting how you write these up and how you present it, depending on that personality.
Yeah. It's a hard job.
It's a hard job. I wouldn't want it.
For sure.
No way.
But do you remember where you were exactly when, well, I think you said it actually, when you found out about the Osama thing, you were watching the news?
I was half naked, getting dressed, watching CNN, and half crying, half cheering.
It's got to be a pretty good feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good.
I kind of wonder today if the reaction to that, like we had, would be the same. It was a very uniting moment when that happened. People were in America. That was a special night. It was.
September 11th in general, too. Like, I can't think, I mean, maybe world wars, but when else has the U.S. been so united, right?
Agreed.
But it's sad that it takes travesty and horrible loss of life in any capacity for the country to get together and be one. United we stand, right?
Yeah. I say this all the time, and I hate it, but, like, you have the terrorist attacks like September 11th and Pearl Harbor, which, you know, are horrible. But, like, outside of the war of 1812, this country's never been invaded, and it really fucking shows.
Right.
Because the problems that we spend so much time fighting about, when you look at the patterns of our society, those bullshit problems, whatever they may be in a given era, happen the most when we are the farthest away from tragedy or, like, major in-your-face war.
Yeah.
And it's so sad to me that it takes something like that. Like, you turn on the news, the shit we're fighting over, God forbid if something happened to that skyline tomorrow, gone.
Yeah.
No,
I agree.
It's gone.
I agree. Yeah. It was really hard coming home from a deployment. You've seen a lot. Maybe you've had near-death experiences. I've had a few. You've done things that you know saved lives. And then you come home and like, I would come home and you're walking around and you see people like chit-chatting at Starbucks and like girls like, oh my God, you know, like I would get mad that these people did not know what others were doing for their country and for them to be able to go sit at Starbucks and gossip.
Yep.
You know, it was a very hard adjustment each time. And it never got easier. I'd come home, you know, fourth one, I'm like, all right, I'm going to be fine, you know, and it wouldn't. It would just still hit you. You know, and then when we withdrew from Afghanistan, like all of that stuff, like you get these reminders.
Yes. Because you know what you know. You can't change that.
Yeah.
You've seen it.
Yeah.
And sadly, that's just a human psychological thing as old as time.
Yeah.
When what you don't see, not even blaming people, it's just how it is.
Yeah, they're ignorant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I see it in other situations that aren't warfare, but it's other problems around the world. I have friends like my friend Paul Rosalie in the Amazon. Finally now, like, he's blowing up online and is like a celebrity. But for the first 17 years, he'd be screaming at people with videos of everything burning, saying, here's what's happening.
It's real.
Here's what we got to do to stop it. And people are like, oh, that's so terrible. Anyway, I'll take a medium and he'll take a large. You know?
Right. It's because it doesn't affect them. It doesn't impact them immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. But when you said you met with the guy and he was like, oh, we got him.
Yeah. I felt like such an asshole. I'm like, yes, you did.
Thank you for that. But, like, you were using him as a source, I would imagine, for other things too, right?
Yeah.
So he still had a lot of use after that.
Yeah.
Is that someone that, I mean, you're not involved anymore, allegedly, but is that someone that you think probably is still a source today?
I doubt it, honestly. Just knowing what I know about him and his location, and I don't know that he would have the access anymore that they needed. Or if he's still alive, honestly.
Oh, you don't even know that?
No.
So you don't have any contact?
I have no contact.
Okay.
That's a hard thing too. I don't know if anyone's ever talked about that, but like sometimes you get close to these people and it's not like you're falling in love with their sources, right? But you respect people, and after spending time with their family and their kids and hanging out, like you care about them and their well-being, right? That's your job to make sure that they're safe. And then when you leave, you shut off contact. You cannot contact them again.
Always?
Not always. It's gone. It's gone. So when ISIS came in, for example, I had a source who was recruited. I spent a lot of time with him and his family. And when ISIS came in, he was absolutely, without a doubt, he was killed. I have zero question, just based on what he did for a living, where he went, like, and knowing his wife and his 2 boys, like, it's still, like, if I think about it, I'll probably tear up. Like, I still feel guilty and I still feel bad. But I know that he made a big difference.
It's really hard to see people talk about it. The one recently that we saw was the Afghanistan thing, and you see how many U.S. servicemen, U.S. intelligence, U.S. Defense Department, whatever it is, people were so horrified at the fact that so many great people who had entrusted us were now left behind there. So much so that, I had Safi Ralph in here, who actually is Afghani and came here and then worked with the special forces, like joined the military and everything, and now has been rescuing people out of there. But like, we were able to get some people out, but there's so many people, it's like, oh, they probably got beheaded by the Taliban.
Yeah, 100%. And excuse me, there's a project I'm working on now, actually. If anyone's ever heard of the Hacking Games, it's a fabulous initiative, if you will. Okay. So tying back to Afghanistan, there's this guy who worked for the Afghan government when the Taliban took over again, when we departed. And he had access to these files that it was a database of all of the Afghans who had cooperated with coalition forces. Excuse me. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Biometric data, everything. So millions and millions of Afghanis were in this database. And this guy risked his life to go back and wipe out that database.
Whoa.
The Taliban's been hunting him for 3 years. He's still in Afghanistan.
He's alive.
We're trying to get him out. But it's stories like that. Like, this is a modern day Schindler. Like, this guy saved millions of lives. Amazing. Right? And we haven't gotten him out yet. It's stuff like that that doesn't sit right with me. There are people that maybe they weren't giving me intel, maybe they weren't saving lives, but there are people that worked with us that cooked my eggs or washed people's laundry or kept the garden nice, right? Those people still helped us. They helped us in support capacity, and they're still there too.
Yep.
So stuff like that really bothers me.
And any help that's given could be viewed as you're the enemy.
You're done.
But it's also, so we were talking about Sean Ryan. Do you know Sean?
Never met him.
Okay. So great guy. And you had said you saw him on my show. Like, he just really good dude who has an amazing show and covers all kinds of things that are directly related to what he did. Does it from his point of view. But he's been tracking a story that I think started with some lady he had on who I believe was in CIA. I don't remember her name. But she was saying, what was it, Alessi? Like 60 to 80 million a month is going to the Taliban from the U.S.? Something like that?
I don't know.
Can we look that up?
A lot.
Sean Ryan, money to Taliban. I'd love to get the number right, but people Google that so you can check it at least. And he just went and talked to Masood's son in Europe. And he was saying that this is happening too. And so when I hear, I'm just relating this back. When I hear stories like, we're still trying to get X out or this person out, obviously the Taliban's awful. Yeah, that was the first guy. This guy, Legend, who wasn't allowed to put his face on, but he was the first guy to talk about it. And then I think Sarah, that's her name, Sarah Adams, the CIA lady, she confirmed it. And then Masood confirmed it. So when I hear that we can't get this person out or that person out, not that the Taliban's not still horrible, they are. But unlike in 2001 where they were unreachable, sending us to voicemail,
right.
Now there's a conversation with these scumbags at least. There's money potentially going to them. So I don't understand why it's the reason they're going to kill these people is because they don't want them there anyway.
Right.
So why, especially with people that are like extra importance. Why are we not like, you give us that person, motherfucker?
Yeah.
Why is that not happening?
Well, we definitely don't want them to know where this guy is, number one. So they can't give him to us because they would not give him to us. They would kill him and his family.
Even with the money going to
Even
them.
with the money. Yeah. Accidents happen.
Yeah. That's why it's you just can't deal with terror groups. I don't know. I don't know what the strategy was there. And that's been multiple administrations looking at this strategy. It's like, what are we doing?
It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. It's disheartening. I mean, you go and you do all this good work and you think you're like fighting the good fight. And then at the end, you're like, well, shit. Like,
yeah.
We're back to square one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what did you think when you saw the image? I mean, the imagery was as bad as the actual result, if not even worse when you look at it. But when you see the imagery from August 15th, 2001, and Afghanistan falls, this is a place where you spent time, you did missions, you had intel ops, you've laid out some of them on this show today. Like, what's going through your head when you see 20 years to circle, the ring goes right back to the beginning?
I've been through that gate. I've been to that airport a million times. It was very surreal, and I cried. I'm not going to lie. I cried. I once had a boss say, there's no crying in spying, but I cried.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very emotional for me to see those images. You know, we failed. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
We could do better.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear someone say that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's part of the issue. There's been especially in Afghanistan, there's been a real lack of accountability there.
Yeah.
I'm not one of these
It's
people.
a lot of this.
Yeah.
A lot of this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not one of these people that likes to say, we need a head on the stake no matter what. But I am saying, like, organizationally,
Right.
who fucked up, just in general.
Right.
Don't put a name on it. Just put the name of the agency or the place or the desk or whatever. Let's fix that.
Well, and like, can we make sure we don't do this again?
Yes.
Please? Like, did anyone do a tabletop exercise? Did anyone do an AAR?
Right.
Do we know where we screwed up so we don't do it again? That's the question.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we do keep making similar mistakes over and over again.
Absolutely. And you were also, as we laid out, you were in Iraq a bunch, and you got out of DIA late 2013, is that right? 2014?
2014, February 2014.
Whoa. So you get out
Yeah.
right before there's literally heads coming off of necks.
Yeah. Good timing, right?
Yeah. Did you see that coming at that point?
No.
Like that bad?
No, I didn't. I mean, you knew it was bad, but I don't think anyone could predict how horrible it really was.
Did you have an itch to get back in when
Yes.
you saw?
Yeah. I still talk about it, right? This is something that was such a huge, it was my life.
Yes.
It was all I had. And so leaving it was really, really hard to walk away. I miss the job. I don't miss the paperwork. I don't miss the admin. I don't miss some of the assholes I worked with. I miss the job tremendously. I miss working with people that wanted to make a difference. I miss saving lives. And when I left and I started with Merck, like you mentioned, it was really hard shifting from I save lives for a living to I save this company money. It was very, very hard, very tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, it's everyone wants to make more money in their career and stuff, but there's a real, like, how you make money too is important to a lot of people. And it's like the adrenaline of the stakes being high seems to be a big part of it for people like you.
Yeah, adrenaline, power. You could argue power. Any of us who are case officers, there's a degree of power. You're in control,
Yes.
right? But also being in the know, right? Knowing what's going on in the world, knowing what's behind the curtain, all of that. There's a sense of loss for that too.
All your security clearances are gone when you left?
No, I've still got clearance.
You still have clearances. But on new stuff coming in, you don't have
No,
clearances.
no one calls me. It's like, let's tell Shawnee.
Right.
No
That's
one
what I
cares
mean.
about me
when
now.
I say that, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even if you focus, because I'm trying to think, there's places you said you can't talk about. So I don't want to go there. But like, it's fair to say on a general global scale, you're a geopolitical expert because you spent time outside of Iraq and Afghanistan. You did a lot of analysis on a lot of other places. Maybe a good there's somewhere I want to go with this, but a good place to start would be, are there places besides the ones that already came up that you said you can't talk about? Are there other places you can talk about that you either spent time on or spent significant analytical time on in support for?
Yeah. So I did operations in Europe, Asia, Africa. Picture me like walking around the Gambia. Do you even know where that is?
I know
Most
the Gambia.
people don't know the Gambia.
We had a thing in high school, Power Up the Gambia.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah. I did clan ops in the Gambia.
You did what?
Clandestine operations.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. I thought you were throwing a hood on or something. I was a little confused. It's a bad place to do it.
With a C, not with a K.
So what's going on in Gambia?
Well, I was stationed in Europe for a while, supporting AFRICOM, and so
From Europe.
from Europe.
Are
Yes.
you allowed to say where in Europe?
Stuttgart
Fuck is that?
in Germany.
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
You know where the Gambia is, but you don't know where Stuttgart is.
Stuttgart? No.
Yes. So
I'm still, World War II is a tough one for me. I'm still like a little, I don't really look at that map too much.
I used to live in World War II barracks, actually, military barracks.
Nice.
Yeah, so we supported AFRICOM, and so we had a lot of operations around. But I had stuff like I had to go to Senegal or the Gambia and stuff, but just me alone. And here's kind of a funny story. I don't know if many people know this about the Gambia. I did not know this until I got there, but there are people there they call bumsters. So these men, young men, basically act as male prostitutes for white Western women from Europe who come down and get a boyfriend, and then they basically dupe them into thinking they're in a relationship. So the woman goes home and then will mail money home to her boyfriend.
Oh my God.
Right? So I didn't know this. I got approval. Remember, Mother May I got approval to go. Agency told me where I could stay, where I couldn't stay. So I stayed there. And I had to do, surveillance detection routes and all these things. And this country is unlike any other country I've been to. It is different.
Why?
It is a third world country in like every way, shape, and form, really. There was a Hezbollah presence.
Is that why you were there?
No.
Okay.
No. But I was, just because I'd studied it, I was aware. But like everything that could go wrong did go wrong in the Gambia. Like, for example, I got followed. I was casing, trying to find where I could do good routes to pick up my source. And a police officer started following me. And I was like, I'm either going to get arrested or like one of these two things is going to happen. And he asked me to follow him. And I went in and he took me into some like police station that wasn't really a police station. I don't know what it was. And then hit on me and gave me his info. He's like, here, I'm on Facebook. Are you on Facebook? Here, like, here's, and I was like, I would love to reach out to you. Yes, we will be friends.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Go away. And then when I actually had to do the surveillance detection route to pick up the source, like what people don't realize is this is timed and very like, you have a set time. I can be in this shop for this amount of time. I need to purchase something. Then I'm going to take this route, either walking or train or bike or car or taxi, whatever.
Really?
It's very, very exact. And
What if things happen though?
things happen.
Yeah.
So I had to take, because I didn't have a car, I had to walk part of it and I had to take a taxi for part of it. And I get in the get in the cab, and the guy is very nice and we're chit-chatting. And then he pulls over and he picks up another guy, and the other guy gets in the front. And I was like, I'm going to get now. Great. Like, okay. So I was like, excuse, where are we going? Because he deviated. I had already known, I knew my route. I knew we were going, and he went a different way. And he starts driving towards this lake. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. Okay, how am I, I'm thinking like your mind's going like, what can I use for a weapon? Like how am I going to get out? And he pulls up basically onto the shore of this lake. We are down like a dirt road in the middle of nowhere. And him and the dude are just talking, and I can't understand them, and they're laughing. And I was like, oh my God, they're talking about how they're going to kill me. What's going to happen? And then he turns off the car, and he reaches in, and he has a joint, like a massive monster blunt. And he goes, do you want any? I'm good. Thanks.
Oh, you didn't take it?
So you two are here just to get high in the middle of my cab ride?
Yes.
Cool. I'll just wait.
You got a secondhand eye. You got a little hot box, right?
Maybe a little bit. It was a good meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they finished their joint, he backtracked and then took me where I needed to go. But the whole time I'm like, crap, now I have to write this up in a report.
Oh my God.
So stuff like that. Yeah, Murphy is everywhere.
If you weren't there for Hezbollah, I don't know if you can say exactly why you were there, but did it have anything to do with terrorism, or was it entirely different?
Entirely different.
There's a lot of shit on those West African countries, a lot of shit happening that somehow can then tie back to terrorist groups that may be in funding of stuff.
Yeah.
There was some big story, and I'm not filling in your blanks, you don't have to confirm or deny, but there was some big story, I've cited a bunch, that Politico put out probably like 8-9 years ago, talking about, I believe it was actually Hezbollah. They are using cocaine and used cars in a funnel through America, Mexico, South America, and back through like the used car villas of the Western African countries to like smuggle and sell and launder money to fund themselves in their operations.
That's accurate. And before that, it was cigarettes.
Huh.
They were big into cigarettes, using that for laundering money.
Whoa.
Yeah.
God, why is it so easy for them to do shit like that?
And cameras falling off ships from Miami, evidently,
Yeah.
in Latin America.
What? But something like that, why is it so easy for them to do that?
They're smart. They're very smart.
And they're backed by Iran.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
It's like a cat's paw for Iran.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about next.
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on with Iran?
God, I don't know. I have no idea.
Is that about to blow up?
I don't know. It would be nice, I guess. I mean, we do need a little regime change here and there, right?
Yeah, but not... We haven't done too well with regime changes and then ongoing wars that happen afterwards. And I'm not saying that, like, their regime doesn't suck. It does. But, like, goddamn, do I not want another Iraq?
I don't think anybody does. I don't think anybody does.
So how do you do that without doing that?
You don't do it.
Yeah.
You let them do it.
You let the Iranian people do it.
You want change? You got to change.
I like how you think.
Yeah.
Do you think that's realistic? Do you think that will happen?
It depends. I mean, look, sadly for them, they just lost some leadership in a helicopter crash.
Yep.
Right? Stuff happens. Maybe more leadership change. Maybe that extremist or very staunch view, maybe that gets watered down a little bit with more fresh blood coming in. I think just looking, again, Arab Spring, it's really interesting to me the hunger that you saw from the younger generations for change.
Yes.
That's something that they need to keep pushing.
Why didn't that work? I mean, you mentioned it earlier about how a lot of that didn't work, but why didn't that work? Because it was happening in so many places at once in 2011.
I don't know, but it got ugly.
And you're there during that time.
Yeah.
You were in Mosul? Or no, you were in Afghanistan in 2011.
Afghanistan 2011. Yeah.
Did you have to go anywhere else based on that?
Because of Arab Spring?
Yeah.
No. Mm-mm.
It's such a weird time.
It was really really weird.
It was really strange.
It's like, you could no, okay.
Fuck.
You could no.
So close.
All right. Let's just wait. Call us when you're ready.
And what was the 500-pound elephant in the room in the middle of the Iran thing is Israel, which, hey, look, I understand their position. Iran does not like them, and they're fucking almost right next to them. Mm-hmm. And there's obviously tete-a-tetes going back and forth. That's not new.
Right.
It's been that way for a while.
Generationally.
Do you think that Iran has never tried to pull off some sort of insanely large-scale attack on Israel because they know what would happen next? Like, meaning they're crazy, out of their minds, the regime, but they're smart enough to understand their own mortality?
Like deterrence, basically? Yes. Yeah. You only poke the bear so much before that bear is going to turn around and swat you, right? Like, I think, deterrence is a huge factor.
So, again, understanding the position that, like, Israel may have because of their geographic proximity, but, like, when you have Netanyahu come here ringing the war bells for Iran, which I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of a foreign leader coming in front of, and it happens with a lot of different countries.
It happens a lot.
But, like, if you're a U.S. senator or you're the president, you think you pretty much got to tell them, like, look, if they're not sending some form of fucking large pipe bomb or, you know, something that's killing tens of thousands of people or like, God forbid, a nuke or something like that, there's nothing to be done here other than you got to let them handle it themselves.
You got to sit back and wait, I guess. Right?
It's hard.
They understand their culture. They understand their history, their politics, their nuances. They understand that better than anyone else. Who are we to direct?
Agreed.
Right?
It's interesting, though, because there's two camps that kind of form today. There's like the isolationist camp, and then there's the, yay, military-industrial complex camp. And I sit right here.
I'm in the middle.
Right?
I'm in the middle.
Right there.
I see both sides. I see pros and cons to both sides.
Depending on the situation,
Yes,
too, right?
Absolutely.
Because like, I don't think it's good for America, who's like the leader of the free world, to... I
and it
know
always will be.
And I hope it always will. Yeah, I like your attitude. But like, I think it's horrible to say, we're just going to stay away from everything. That can't end well.
We can't.
But the alternative of war everywhere, baby, business a booming, I don't like that either.
Right. There's a fine balance between what you get involved with and all the politics and all the strategy and stuff. That's another reason, though, why I loved being a case officer, and people don't recognize this, is those reports that I'm writing, that intel that I'm collecting, that's shaping policy.
Yes.
Our policymakers have access to those reports those analysts write, and they're making better decisions on to war or not to war, etc., based on that information that we are providing to them. So that's a really powerful feeling.
Absolutely.
You know, because a lot of them need more information. They're not.
You don't say. What do you make of the two wars right now that we are not involved in, but that we are continuing to send a lot of money to? I'm not saying that at the beginning there weren't reasons to send money or whatever. That's an argument to be had on a different day. But, you know, Ukraine, for example, we're 2.5 years in. We're still sending billions. Israel, it's coming up on a year in. We're sending a lot of money. There seems like there's a lot of indiscriminate things going on in that entire territory. Like, how do you wind something like that down?
I don't have a good answer. I don't know that anybody does, honestly, or we would have done better in Afghanistan.
Yeah. But we're there. These are proxies.
Yes. I feel like we just need smarter people in the rooms telling our leadership different things. Presidents are surrounded by groups of smart people, right? All of their advisors and everybody. I'm afraid that some politicians only listen to what they want to hear.
Yes.
They don't hear the other arguments. So we need better information and better people to make sure they hear, if that makes sense.
And they got to want to, though. That's a great point you make.
But some of them don't.
They don't, because it's politics. Mm-hmm. Like you've been saying all day. Like, oh, well, this is what's going to win me the election if I say this.
Right.
I hate that.
Right.
But like, I don't know, other than we could definitely help with term limits in Senate or the House. That would be a start. But there's still always going to be another election.
Right.
You know, even if it's just one. Well, someone's, you know, enough people are going to have to win an election.
Right.
That it's going to affect how they vote.
Right.
And then they make these bills with a million other things in it, too.
Yeah. Which, yeah, that's annoying. Ugh. That's just annoying to me.
Yeah.
Like, just put forth what you want to put forth and quit hiding stuff in, like,
yeah.
your 90-page or 500-page bills. Like, come on.
I wish Steve Jobs had lived, like, another at least 3 years and had resigned from Apple and given the consultant job to go into D.C. and tell them how they can write a bill.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, my God. We would have solved every problem.
It also would have been very pretty. Like, it would have a good, like, user experience.
There wouldn't be a bill longer than one page.
I know. Could you imagine?
Oh, my God. It'd be incredible. You know, they're giving them all these stacks and shit.
Yeah.
Be like,
they're not reading that. They're not reading that stuff.
And to defend some of those politicians, they'll get a bill they got to vote on at 4 o'clock that's this thick at 12 o'clock. That's not their fault.
But we got to do better.
Yeah.
Yet again.
We do. What made you want to finally get out? I think you mentioned this earlier, like you wanted to have kids, but was there more to it?
It was a combination of things. So I had enough near-death experiences to recognize I don't get paid enough for this shit. I never wanted kids. In fact, I swore allegiance to DIA and promised I would never have kids and get married and everything like that. I just wanted to be a case officer. But that changed. After living through everything I did, I wanted to have children. Also, I worked with some real assholes. And the bullying and retaliation and just douchery in general just got to me. Like I couldn't handle it anymore. I thought I was a lifer. I thought I was going to be there forever. In fact, other people were like, you are leaving? Like we thought you were going to be a lifer. But there's just so much toxic culture and environment and people you can take, and then it just breaks you. That, and I was having a lot of health issues, and I had zero time to actually take care of them. So like you get injured or you're sick, and they're like, come see a doctor. Well, I can't. I'm going to be in the Gambia. Well, when can you come back? I don't know.
Right.
How do you make a doctor's appointment? I couldn't even physically take care of myself. So all of that combined, and then a friend of mine reached out and said, hey, Merck is standing up this intellectual property and trade secret protection program, and you'd be great. Are you interested? It was like the door opened and the angels sung again, like, oh, I have an exit strategy, right? So, yeah.
And now you have your own companies today, right?
5 years ago, I started my own company.
And what do you do?
I do all things human risk. So human risk management, consulting, insider threat, insider risk, human trust. You're going to hear all these terms. It's all the same thing. Yeah. So basically, organizations hire people. And if they hire people, they have human risk because people are stupid. We make mistakes. We take shortcuts. We email things we shouldn't, etc. But people can also be malicious and they can be compromised. So external threat actors can leverage a negligent employee, for example, to steal their credentials and access their networks. Or you have someone who's disgruntled, they become malicious and they sabotage something or commit fraud or espionage or things like that. So I consult companies and help them build insider threat programs. I do human risk assessments, and then I do training and awareness and a metric ton of keynotes, speaking, and things like that.
Are things a lot harder in that department now, like post-COVID, with so many people not working at the office, and so people having access to remote technology, being able to take trade secrets with them and stuff like that?
Yeah, the risks have changed definitely because of COVID and the work from home. I mean, people are working behind unmanaged home routers and they don't know what VPN is, all this stuff. Yes, you could take your phone and take photographs of the screen. I've seen cases, I've investigated cases where people did that and then tried to sell that data to competitors. So those threats are very, very real, but there are a lot of steps that organizations can do to mitigate those risks that they're not doing. And so I feel like it took me a while to figure it out, but going from the person that recruits the vulnerable insider and then standing up insider threat programs for companies. I did it for Uber, I did it for Merck, et cetera, and clients of mine. Being an investigator, I look at things differently, especially from that espionage angle, because I used to leverage those motivations and vulnerabilities. And so I help companies understand how their people are susceptible or vulnerable to stuff like that and help them basically beef up those mitigations.
Sounds important.
I think it is.
Sounds like a lot of people could use it.
Yeah.
Is there a link we can also put in the description for your business as well?
Viance Group, yeah. www.viance, VAILLANCE group.com.
Let's make sure we put that down below. Last question for you. This has been awesome today, by the way.
Yeah.
It's really, really compelling story and great analysis. But do you have any regrets, like major regrets about your career?
Oh, that's a good one. Yes. So there are a couple things I didn't get to do that I wish that I would have done. I wanted to work in embassies, like as an attaché or something like that, a defense attaché. I never got to do that. I wanted to be an instructor down at the farm, which I can still do. So I'm not taking that off the table yet.
Talk to old Jim about that.
Right. But for me, like shaping and motivating the younger generation, you've heard me say probably 50 times now, we can do better. We can do better with recruiting people to get into the intelligence community. We can do better with training and teaching empathy and respect, because there's a lot of case officers who, like you mentioned, who's like, don't give a fuck. Mm-hmm. You're not going to recruit really good people if you don't give a fuck. So I do regret not being able to do those things. I don't know that I regret leaving. I think I left at the right time. And I feel like now, remember I told you I'm mission focused. I feel like I figured out my new mission, and I am still helping U.S. national security by helping the companies and the organizations within it, because we're getting our lunch eaten by China and Russia and Iran and North Korea, and they're stealing our IP, and they're posing as employees when they're not. all of these things. So I feel like I can actually help contribute again by doing what I'm doing.
That's a whole separate podcast right there. That's what I have. It would be very interesting to have you in here with some of the people I've had in. I was telling you that before, but like I want to think on that. Like you and Evie would be an incredible podcast because you did very different things. But I don't know if you're getting this on the camera, but the mannerisms and some of the communication is identical, right? Something there.
She must be awesome then.
Yeah, she's great. Love Evie. Shout out to Evie. But Shawnee, thank you so much for coming into town to do this. We'll have your link down in the description for people. What was it?
Viance Group.
Viance Group.
Yep.
And we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course, you did awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Everybody else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to me. Peace. Thank you guys for watching the episode. Before you leave, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and smash that like button on the video. It's a huge help. And also, if you're over on Instagram, be sure to follow the show at Julian Dorey Podcast or also on my personal page at Julian D. Dorey. Both links are in the description below. Finally, if you'd like to catch up on our latest episodes, use the Julian Dorey Podcast playlist link in the description below. Thank you.